Chapter 1559 Seed of Spirit Source 5. Chapter 1559 Seed of Spirit Source 5. Feng Sun held Feng Wu's hand. Do you think Chieftain Senil willingly gave up half of this chance to obtain that seed? No, our emperor forced him into it. He added, Xiao Wu, if you can get that seed, you'll be able to make significant progress and quickly catch up with Zhua Qingluan. Xiao Wu, this is a treasure that can change your fate. Excited by Feng Sun's statement, Feng Wu wanted to hold the seed in her hands right there and then. But the next second, Feng Sun shook his head and smiled bitterly. Well, I'm making it sound too easy. I'm practically dreaming. Feng Wu looked at him in bewilderment. Feng Sun rubbed Feng Wu's head and heaved a long sigh. Actually, I wasn't supposed to tell you that. What should I do now? Feng Wu looked perplexed. Feng Sun said, Here's the thing. There's only one seed and so many people want it. Both Emperor Wu and Chieftain Senil are surrounded by capable cultivators who all want this seed. You'll never be able to get it. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. Feng Sun said, I blurted all that out in excitement, but you won't be able to get the seed, which means I've deliberately disappointed you again. Gosh, it's all my fault. Feng Wu rolled her eyes at him. I can't get it? Says who? Feng Sun was amused. All right, you can get it. I'm sure you'll be able to get the seed. In fact, he thought that the chances of her getting the seed was lower than 1 in 1,000 or maybe 10,000. He comforted Feng Wu instead. Xiao Wu, don't worry. We may not be able to have anything to do with the seed, but we're still in the core area, aren't we? Feng Wu looked confused. The core area. Feng Sun said, That's right. The closer you are to the core, the higher the chances of getting the seed. Of course, we can forget about that for now. Here's the thing. When the seed explodes, we'll experience the recovery of spiritual essence. Feng Wu asked, What's the recovery of spiritual essence? Feng Sun said, That's the chaotic spiritual essence which filled our world when the latter was created. It's invaluable and very hard to come by. So, you now understand why everyone wants to be here for the winter hunt. He then rubbed her head. Now you know why I have to put you in this core area, don't you? Feng Wu nodded with sparkling eyes. Yes, I do now. Feng Sun asked, Do you still want your remote corner? Feng Wu said, No, not anymore. Feng Sun rubbed her head and chuckled. The girl could be very defiant when she wanted to, but when she behaved she could be so adorable. Jun Linyuan was exceptionally quiet that day. He shut himself in his tent and wouldn't let anyone disturb him. According to Feng, the crown prince was cultivating in seclusion. Without Jun Linyuan ordering her around, Feng Wu had a lot of free time. After a simple dinner, Feng Wu walked around the area on the left side of the highland, as if she were a lord inspecting her estate. She realized that a lot of people had gathered around Lord Mu. She didn't know most of them, but judging from their attire, they were either clan heads or government officials of the Junwu Empire. Chapter 1560 Seed of Spirit Source 6. Chapter 1560 Seed of Spirit Source 6. Their conversation with Lord Mu was carried on the wind in Feng Wu's direction. My lord, the Wang family should be put before the Li family based on our title rankings, shouldn't we? My lord, why is the Zhao family given the outermost area if we're allocated spots according to our ranks? My lord. This was all because of the chaotic energy from the imminent recovery of the spirit source. Feng Wu finally believed Feng Sun. The core area she was in was indeed very desirable. Because Double 12 was still a few days away, Chieftain Senil suggested that they start the winter hunt the following day. The seed of spirit source was somewhere in this vast land for the luckiest person to find, and everyone was excited. Apart from the two princes, a teenage girl wearing bright-colored clothes stood next to Chieftain Senil. She had rosy cheeks and bright eyes and was very pretty. She wore a red dress and held a barbed silver whip in her right hand which made a loud slashing sound when she flicked it. Everywhere she went, all the warriors of the grassland made way for her. It was obvious that she was a distinguished young lady that they didn't dare offend. She was none other than Princess Sapphiro, the eldest daughter of Chieftain Senil. In their language, her name meant, the sun over the grassland that never sets. One could tell how much the chieftain adored her from that name. Sapphiro's eyes lit up when she spotted Jun Wuxia. Jun Wuxia, get over here. Sapphiro made loud smacking sounds with her silver whip in the air before pointing it at Jun Wuxia. You said you would compete with me last year, but you took off as soon as you had the chance. You're not going anywhere this year. Get over here. Chieftain Senil and Emperor Wu were chatting happily, so the quarrel between the two girls didn't attract much attention. However, Jun Wuxia felt her temples throb as soon as she spotted Princess Sapphiro. Sapphiro wasn't just any princess. She was arrogant, willful, and more stubborn than a bull. Jun Wuxia would never be able to beat Sapphiro, who grew up riding horses. She turned and tried to slip away. However, she was only able to take 2 steps before Sapphiro rushed over and blocked her way. You're not leaving. Jun Wuxia looked at Sapphiro in resignation. Hey, Jun Wuxia, what did you tell me before you left last year? You said you would take me to see your big brother if I defeat you. So, fight me now. Sapphiro was very bold. As for the big brother, of course she meant Jun Linyuan. Jun Wuxia's head hurt. Jun Linyuan couldn't be any more nonchalant toward her. Who was she to take Sapphiro to him? Her lie would be exposed if she did that. Ahem, Jun Wuxia felt conflicted. Hey Jun Wuxia, you'll lose this competition if you don't fight me, and you'll have to take me to see your big brother now, Sapphiro said with sparkling eyes. She had had a crush on Jun Linyuan for a while now, but the crown prince wouldn't even look at her, and she couldn't find any opportunity to approach him. Otherwise, she wouldn't have turned to Jun Wuxia for help. Jun Linyuan. Jun Linyuan. Jun Linyuan. Jun Wuxia racked her brain for a way out as her eyes darted around. All of a sudden, her eyes lit up, because she saw a pretty figure a short distance away. The person over there feeding a horse was none other than Feng Wu herself. Immediately, Jun Wuxia felt that luck was on her side. Chapter 1561 Sapphiro's Provocation 1. Chapter 1561 Sapphiro's Provocation 1. Do you really want to see my big brother? Jun Wuxia feigned a worried look. Of course. I like your big brother. Princesses of the grassland were all straightforward like that. Jun Wuxia said, My princess, I'm glad to hear that. You're so beautiful and lovely. I'd love to have you as a sister-in-law. Sapphiro played with her braids shyly when she heard the compliment. Jun Wuyu and Duguyamo were with Jun Wuxia. Duguyamo had kept a low profile since the Immortal Flower Festival, and this was the first time she had come out of her carriage to hang out with Jun Wuxia. Something fierce flickered in her eyes when she saw the shy look on Sapphiro's face. Sapphiro couldn't hide her excitement. Do you really think I'll be a suitable sister-in-law for you? Jun Wuxia needed Sapphiro's help to kill Feng Wu, so she had to make her very happy. Of course. No one can be a better sister-in-law than you. I won't say that to anyone else. You're my favorite, Jun Wuxia said solemnly. Sapphiro was so happy that she couldn't stop smiling. Duguyamo and Jun Wuyu both had indescribable expressions in their eyes. But Jun Wuxia finally revealed her true purpose. But what? Sapphiro frowned and looked perplexed. I really hope that you can become my sister-in-law, but my brother may not think that way. Jun Wuxia looked concerned. As you may know, my brother isn't the most approachable guy in the world. I'm prepared for that. Sapphiro waved her hands casually. He's not close to anyone anyway, right? Ahem, Jun Wuxia suddenly cleared her throat. What? Did I say something wrong? Sapphiro looked confused. It's true, my brother used to be very distant from everyone, but things are different now. How so? Sapphiro suddenly had a very bad feeling. Well, have you heard of Feng Wu? After much foreshadowing, Jun Wuxia finally revealed her purpose. Feng Wu? That's a nice name. But who's she? Well, Feng Wu, Jun Wuxia smiled wryly. Technically, she's the 5th daughter of the Feng clan, and the daughter of the 2nd branch of the clan. Wait, you don't mean that Feng Wu, do you? The one who lost all her ability? My princess, you've heard her name. That's why it sounds so familiar. It's her. Sapphiro grunted. Why are you bringing her name up? She's useless. Jun Wuxia smiled bitterly. She's not useless anymore. She got her ability back, and has resumed her cultivation. She's a junior spiritual elder now. Sapphiro snickered. A junior spiritual elder? As if that's something worth showing off. Don't make me laugh. As the pearl of the grassland, Sapphiro was one of the most talented cultivators here, and was exceptionally bright. Why was Jun Wuxia so reluctant to run into her? It was because Sapphiro was actually very capable. So, what about that Feng Wu? What is she to His Royal Highness? Sapphiro didn't think much of the useless Feng Wu at all. Well, Feng Wu is quite a piece of work. Before Jun Wuxia could answer, Duguyamo chimed in. Chapter 1562, Sapphiro's Provocation, 2. Chapter 1562, Sapphiro's Provocation, 2. Come to think of it, Duguyamo had more hatred toward Feng Wu than anyone else. What? Sapphiro turned to look at Duguyamo. Feng Wu is His Royal Highness' bedwarming maid. Duguyamo broke the news to her. We have no idea what dirty tricks she played, but His Royal Highness allows her to stay with him. A bedwarming maid? Sapphiro flared up, and her eyes were bloodshot red. That's what she is now, and she serves His Royal Highness around the clock. Duguyamo's eyes shone with jealousy. We have no idea what she did to His Royal Highness, but he's so kind to her and has turned a blind eye to her disobedience several times. People say that. What did they say? Sapphiro was filled with rage. She felt like a volcano filled with magma and was ready to explode. Jun Wuxia chimed in. They all say that His Royal Highness likes Feng Wu. Bullshit. Sapphiro cursed loudly. Jun Wuxia was speechless. Jun Linyuan is mine. He has to be. I'll kill anyone who tries to take him away from me. Sapphiro cracked her whip. Jun Wuxia and Duguyamo exchanged satisfied looks. It felt so nice to use a borrowed knife to get rid of an enemy. But Sapphiro wasn't stupid. She stared at Jun Wuxia and said, I'm not going to believe everything you say. I'm not stupid. Jun Linyuan had never shown any interest in girls, so why would he fall for a useless girl now? Deep down, Sapphiro wasn't convinced. Just then, they heard footsteps nearby. Jun Wuxia saw that it was Feng Lu. Feng Lu, come over here. Jun Wuxia waved at her. Even Mu Yaoyao could order Feng Lu around, to say nothing of Jun Wuxia. Hence, Feng Lu and Dugumingshi happily ran to her side. Your Royal Highness, Feng Lu was thrilled that the princess wanted to talk to her. Jun Wuxia glanced at her and asked casually, Is Feng Wu, the daughter of your clan, staying with your people now? Realizing that Feng Lu was from the Feng clan, Sapphiro stared at Feng Lu. Feng Lu said, Your Royal Highness, do you mean Feng Wu? Jun Wuxia nodded. Feng Lu smiled bitterly. Your Royal Highness, please don't make fun of us. How can Feng Wu stay with us? She's His Royal Highness's bedwarming maid now. Ever since she earned that title, she no longer finds our clan worthy of her attention. Bedwarming maid? Jun Linyuan's favor. Sapphiro was convinced she now knew everything. She clutched her silver whip tighter and was filled with rage. All of a sudden, she charged out like a cheetah. Jun Wuxia looked pleased. Ha, Feng Wu, you're so dead. Earlier that morning, Feng Wu had walked out of her tent to find a dirty, scrawny blood-red horse outside. She had no idea where it came from, but it kept neighing outside her tent. Since she couldn't chase it away, she had to feed it. However, it wouldn't eat grass. Feng Wu sighed and had to feed it some beetroot she had just cooked. Chapter 1563 Sapphiro's Provocation 3. Chapter 1563 Sapphiro's Provocation 3. She was only going to give it a try, but as it turned out, the skinny blood-red horse loved the beetroot and wouldn't stop eating it. Hey, why are you so thin? What did you do to yourself? Feng Wu patted the skinny horse on the back. Everywhere she touched, it was all skin and bones. Feng Wu was still talking to the horse when she felt something dangerous approaching quickly. She dodged involuntarily. Thump! Instead of hitting Feng Wu, the whip lashed down hard on the thin horse's back. Nay! The horse trembled in pain and dropped the beetroot. Feng Wu saw a bloody gash on its back. That was so cruel. Looking up, Feng Wu met a pair of bloodshot eyes that were filled with rage. So, you're Feng Wu. Sapphiro stared at Feng Wu with such hatred that one would think Feng Wu had eradicated her entire clan. She looked like she wanted to skin Feng Wu alive. Feng Wu frowned. So, you're that useless Feng Wu? Sapphiro stared at Feng Wu. Feng Wu pursed her lips. Who might you be? Sapphiro said, Good question. I'm Princess Sapphiro. Remember that name, because I'm the one who's going to end your life. After that, her whip started lashing out like a shower. Each strike was a heavy blow that was intended to kill. That was what she wanted, to kill Feng Wu. Feng Wu had a temper as well, not to mention that no one would be able to stand such bullying. However, Sapphiro was indeed very capable, and she was a more advanced cultivator than Feng Wu, who had to defend herself from the beginning. Seeing that Feng Wu was able to narrowly dodge her strike every single time, Sapphiro got even angrier. How dare you dodge when I want you dead? Damn you! Sapphiro struck harder with her whip. Feng Wu could tell that Sapphiro's capability had suddenly gone up by a level. Feng Wu was a level 3 spiritual elder, whereas Sapphiro had started off as a level 4 spiritual elder. Now, however, she suddenly became a level 5. It was all thanks to the silver whip. Feng Wu remained expressionless and dodged again. Thud! She slipped, and the end of the whip cut her arm. Blood splashed everywhere. That hurt. The silver whip was barbed, and it took a piece of her flesh out when it pulled away, which made Feng Wu suck in her breath in pain. There was poison on the barb. Feng Wu glared at Sapphiro. Sapphiro stared back at Feng Wu in satisfaction. You worthless slave. You don't deserve to stay with His Royal Highness. Go to hell. Feng Wu's face darkened, and she took a deep breath. It seemed that Princess Sapphiro was forcing her to show her cards. If that was the case, she decided that she would show the princess what she could do. Feng Wu was about to take out her fallen star sword, when she heard a voice. Princess Sapphiro, what are you doing? A person approached them, and he caught the whip with a strong hand. Feng Sun. Sapphiro frowned when she saw who it was. Humph! Feng Sun used a little more force. Sapphiro stumbled back quite a few steps before she steadied herself. A short distance away, Jun Wuxia and the others were disappointed. Why did Feng Sun have to show up now? Another few minutes and Feng Wu would have been dead. Chapter 1564. Chapter 1564. Sapphiro's Provocation 4. What a pity. Such a waste. Sapphiro finally realized what happened, and she stared at Feng Sun in disbelief. You! How dare you push me? Feng Sun ignored her, and all his attention was on Feng Wu. Rage flickered in his eyes when he saw Feng Wu's injured arm. She was his sister. How dare anyone try to pick on her? It's not serious. It'll heal in no time. Compared with Feng Sun, Feng Wu was much calmer. Feng Sun clenched his fist. How dare she hurt you? How dare she? Feng Wu patted him on the shoulder. There. Just bear with it for a bit longer, for the sake of the seed of spirit source. To Feng Wu, apart from the 7th trial, her top priority was to obtain that seed. While the 7th trial was for her master's sake, her own capability would rapidly improve with the seed. As Feng Wu appeased Feng Sun, Princess Sapphiro didn't stop. Staring at Feng Sun, she cracked her whip on the ground, ripping it open and splashing dirt everywhere. Out of my way! Sapphiro glared at Feng Sun and commanded him. Well, although Feng Wu had calmed him down, Feng Sun flared up again almost immediately. What did you say? He usually struck others as a sprightly, harmless teenager, but now, his face turned red with rage. I'm going to kill her! Out of my way! Feng Sun smirked. Sapphiro, what did Xiao Wu do to offend you? Why do you have to kill her? Sapphiro said, Why should I give you any explanation for killing a servant? Well, since you asked, I'll play nice. Because I don't like the sight of her, and I want her dead. How about that? Can you get out of my way now? Feng Sun was infuriated. That was outrageous. He pushed Feng Wu to the side and drew out his sword from behind his back. What do you think you're doing? Sapphiro stared at Feng Sun. Feng Sun's eyes shone coldly. If you're bold enough to pick on my sister, be prepared for my revenge. Fight me. You! Seeing the murderous look in Feng Sun's eyes, Sapphiro felt a chill run down her spine all the way to the bottom of her feet. She stiffened. How dare you defy me for a slave? Feng Sun, are you out of your mind? Sapphiro suddenly felt scared. Feng Wu is a princess of the Empire and my own sister. Princess Sapphiro, insulting her is the same as insulting me. Say no more. Bring it on. Sapphiro didn't know what to do now. Of course she wasn't Feng Sun's match, and fighting him would be suicidal. Moreover, she could see that Feng Sun was serious. You're the son of the renowned Northern Feng general, and you'll pay with your life if you kill me. Is it worth it? Sapphiro's voice trembled a little. Believe me when I say this, nothing will happen to me even if I kill you. Feng Sun snorted. I'm not fighting you. Even if I have to fight someone, it should be her. Sapphiro wasn't stupid. Of course she wouldn't agree to a fight she was bound to lose. The noise finally drew Emperor Wu and Chieftain Sinal's attention. What's going on over there? Is there a fight? Seeing that his dear daughter was backing away, Chieftain Sinal realized that his daughter was losing, so he gave the other party a warning. Chapter 1565. Chapter 1565, Untitled. Emperor Wu immediately spotted Feng Wu, and he frowned. This Feng Wu just wouldn't stop bringing them trouble. Bring them here, Emperor Wu told Master Bai the eunuch. Master Bai nodded and quickly walked over to them. Meanwhile, seeing that Sapphiro insisted on fighting her, Feng Wu was about to say yes. She wouldn't be whipped for nothing. However, Master Bai arrived before she could say anything. Hence, despite their reluctance, they went to see Emperor Wu as ordered. What's going on? Sitting up high, Emperor Wu looked over each face until his gaze fixed on Feng Wu. Come to think of it, Emperor Wu didn't know how he should treat Feng Wu. She had left him with quite complicated feelings. The girl was unbelievably talented, but she was also as defiant as Jun Linyuan. She wants to kill me. That simple statement frightened everyone. Sapphiro didn't realize how bold Feng Wu could be. Immediately, all eyes were on her. Sapphiro glared at Feng Wu. Feng Wu stood there proudly and wouldn't be threatened. Chieftain Sinal gave Sapphiro a stern look and chided her softly. Young lady, how can you do that? That's too arrogant. Is that what you were doing? That was hardly a reprimand. Emperor Wu was immediately displeased. Sapphiro cracked her whip and snorted. She's just a slave. What does it matter if I want to kill her? Stop nagging. So, she was just a slave. Chieftain Senil glanced at Feng Wu and was secretly amazed by how pretty the slave was. Although he didn't think much of killing a slave, he still had to put on a show for Emperor Wu. So, he threw another dirty look at Sapphiro and said, "You're so willful. She's not a slave on the grassland. You can't hit or kill her as you wish. Apologize to His Majesty now." Chieftain Senil was implying that here on the grassland, Princess Sapphiro could do whatever she wanted to a slave, so what she did to Feng Wu was nothing personal. If Emperor Wu blamed her for it, he would seem petty. Just then, Emperor Wu narrowed his eyes and stared at Sapphiro. Emperor Wu was conflicted as he was biased toward his own. He had conflicted feelings about Feng Wu, but if there were outsiders involved, he would take her side. Despite her reluctance, Sapphiro still walked up to Emperor Wu and cupped her fists. "Your Majesty, I was so angry just then that I tried to kill her in public. Sorry about the scene I caused. Please don't be mad." Emperor Wu was furious. Sapphiro's meaning was that she was sorry for trying to kill Feng Wu in public when she should have done it in secret. Emperor Wu's eyes shone dangerously. Instead of speaking to Sapphiro, he turned around and asked Chieftain Senil in a cold voice, "Who told you she's a slave?" "What?" Chieftain Senil was alarmed and had a bad feeling. A short distance away, Jun Wuxia and the others were equally frightened. No, it was obvious that the Emperor was on Feng Wu's side. Chapter 1566, Untitled. Chapter 1566, Untitled. Jun Wuxia wanted to slip away, but the chief steward was standing right next to her, and his keen gaze was on her. She was certain that if she tried anything, the chief steward would expose her without hesitation. Fearing that things were about to go south, Jun Wuxia became fidgety. As expected, Chieftain Senil looked from Feng Wu to Sapphiro and asked Emperor Wu in bewilderment, "Isn't she a slave?" Sapphiro looked equally confused. Emperor Wu smirked. "How can she be a slave? She's Feng Wu, a registered princess of the Junwu Empire. She's no less inferior to your Princess Sapphiro." Because Senil Grassland was a vassal state, its titles were one rank lower. A born princess of the grassland was equivalent to one bestowed the title by the Junwu Empire. Sapphiro was shocked when Emperor Wu said that. So was Chieftain Senil. Killing a slave was one thing, but a princess. It could be called a little quarrel between two girls. But it could also be as serious as an act of usurpation and ignoring the authority of the empire. "Your Majesty, is she a princess?" Chieftain Senil rose to his feet. He wasn't the only one surprised. Sapphiro opened her eyes wide as well. Staring at Sapphiro, Chieftain Senil was filled with anger, and his voice was as cold as ice. "Apologize to the princess now." Sapphiro gritted her teeth. "She's just a slave. How can she be a princess? Your Majesty, was she made a princess only recently?" Emperor Wu's face darkened. Chieftain Senil immediately rose to his feet and smacked Sapphiro on the head. His face darkened and he said, "Nonsense. Apologize now." Chieftain Senil and Emperor Wu had never been the best of friends, and the two of them had quarreled quite a bit over the seed of the spirit source. The current temporary truce was only the result of a compromise. Their relationship was so fragile that it couldn't withstand any turmoil. That was why Chieftain Senil was so alarmed. However, Sapphiro could only see the friendship on the surface and not the complicated political strife underneath. That was why she was behaving so willfully. Sapphiro sounded reluctant. "But Jun Wuxia told me herself that she was a slave." "Jun Wuxia." Emperor Wu stared at Jun Wuxia with cold eyes, and he looked very intimidating. Jun Wuxia trembled and cringed, and soon realized that she couldn't take the blame. Her father already thought her guilty because of what happened to Feng Wu before, so she couldn't afford to make any more mistakes. Sapphiro, you must be mistaken. Jun Wuxia took a deep breath and forced herself to calm down. Her face relaxed and she smiled a little, her eyes clear and innocent. I did indeed mention Feng Wu to you and said that she was with my brother now, but just because she's with my brother doesn't mean that she's a slave, nor can it be denied that she's a princess. Sapphiro stared at Jun Wuxia. You didn't tell me that she was a princess. Jun Wuxia said, I wanted to, but you rushed out before I had time to say anything. Plus. Chapter 1567 Untitled. Chapter 1567, Untitled. Jun Wuxia took a deep breath and smiled wryly. Even if I told you that she's a princess, would that have stopped you from trying to kill her? That was very true. Sapphiro was rendered speechless, but she soon reacted and cracked her whip. You didn't tell me, so it's all your fault. Enraged, Jun Wuxia lost her temper. She was about to argue with Sapphiro, when Jun Wuyu tugged her sleeve, shook her head, and mouthed something to her. Jun Wuxia immediately took the hint and realized that confronting Sapphiro wouldn't do her any good. Hence, she immediately changed her strategy. Dabbing the corner of her eyes with her sleeve, she let tears roll down her cheeks, and she sobbed. Princess Sapphiro, you're right. It's all my fault. I should have reminded you in time and stopped you. I'm so sorry. Jun Wuxia wept and knelt down in front of Emperor Wu. Father, it's all my fault. Sapphiro went through all that because of me. Please punish me for it. Next to them, Feng Wu couldn't help but glance at Jun Wuyu. Other people might not have noticed, but Feng Wu saw how Jun Wuyu had warned Jun Wuxia. She could read lips, so she could tell what Jun Wuyu had said. Feng Wu. Jun Wuyu was telling Jun Wuxia that she should copy what Feng Wu had done in the Empress Dowager's tent before and show fragility. As expected, Jun Wuxia admitted all her mistakes and cried. Instead of scolding her, Emperor Wu turned his anger on Sapphiro. Sapphiro was so simple-minded that all she did was yell, Jun Wuxia told me to kill Feng Wu. Jun Wuxia kept crying. Father, it's all my fault. I'm sorry. Chieftain Sino couldn't sit still anymore. He immediately got up and tried to help Jun Wuxia to her feet. My dear princess, please get up. Sapphiro was too arrogant. It's not your fault. Please get up. After helping the sobbing Jun Wuxia up, Chieftain Sino turned to Emperor Wu with a wry smile. Everything's clear now. Luckily, Princess Feng Wu isn't hurt. Feng Wu slowly raised her wounded right arm. Well, Chieftain Sino cleared his throat in embarrassment. Luckily, it's only a minor injury. Feng Wu's legs gave out and she almost fainted. Fortunately, Feng Sun caught her in time. Master Chu was right next to Emperor Wu. He had interacted a lot with Feng Wu because of the Empress Dowager's illness, and Feng Wu had left a great impression on him. Seeing this, he immediately rushed to her side. No! Master Chu caught Feng Wu and checked her pulse. He then cried out, Princess Feng Wu has been poisoned. Master Chu was a smart man himself. He knew what Feng Wu needed most right now, so he helped her. The whip is covered with poison, which has entered the princess's blood. It's about to reach her heart. If we wait any longer, her life will be in danger. Master Chu cried out. Emperor Wu almost rolled his eyes. He knew what an excellent doctor Feng Wu was. She would never let herself be killed like that. He could tell that Master Chu was biased. But of course Emperor Wu wouldn't expose Master Chu's lie, and he looked quite nervous himself. How is she? How's she doing? Chapter 1568 Untitled. Chapter 1568 Untitled. Master Chu said nervously, It's an acute poison that takes effect very rapidly. We can formulate an antidote from scratch, but it'll take longer, and I don't think Princess Feng Wu can wait that long. Chieftain Sino didn't need more urging. Smacking Sapphiro on the back, he said, The antidote. Sapphiro wanted to deny it, but seeing the stern look in her father's eyes, she had to say, "I don't have it on me." Sapphiro! Chieftain Senil was really angry now. "Father, I really don't have the antidote on me. My younger sister made it, only she has it." Sapphiro gritted her teeth. Chieftain Senil threw a dirty look at Sapphiro before telling his own guard to fetch the antidote. But that way, he had confirmed the fact that Sapphiro had injured Feng Wu. As time crawled by, the atmosphere was tense and the mood was very awkward. Every minute felt like an hour to Chieftain Senil. Feng Wu was still unconscious, but she would twitch or spasm every now and then, and white foam dribbled out of her mouth. It was terrifying to see her like this. Feng Sun stared at Sapphiro and said in a warning tone, "If anything happens to little Feng Wu, you'll be held responsible." Sapphiro gritted her teeth and tried to make excuses. "It's not like that. The poison should only knock her out. It shouldn't make her twitch or spit white foam. She's faking it." Holding Feng Wu's hand, Feng Sun said angrily, "Are you saying that Feng Wu is acting? So, she didn't faint but is only pretending to be unconscious?" Sapphiro said, "That's exactly what I'm saying. She's just a poser." Feng Sun was so angry that he laughed. He then tried to take her silver whip. "Fine. If that's the case, why don't you join her? Let me see if you twitch or spit up foam." "Hey! What are you doing? Don't take my whip. I'm a princess." Feng Sun smirked. "Then, my princess, enjoy your poison." "Stop," Emperor Wu said coldly. Only then did Feng Sun stop. Emperor Wu gave Sapphiro a very unfriendly look. The younger princess wasn't staying very far away, and a guard ran back in less than 5 minutes, holding the antidote with both hands. Feng Wu only slowly opened her eyes after the antidote was fed to her. "See? I told you already. She's fine. What a poser, acting as if she was going to die." Sapphiro glared at Feng Wu. Feng Wu looked weakly at Sapphiro, as if she was sapped of all strength. She then fell to the side and fainted again. "Xiao Wu!" Before she fell, she tugged Feng Sun's hand. Taking the hint, he gave an exaggerated reaction. Feng Sun could exaggerate as much as he wanted now, because Emperor Wu was on his side. "What's wrong with Xiao Wu? Is the poison not neutralized?" Emperor Wu knew how good a doctor Feng Wu was, so he obviously asked that on purpose. Jun Wuxia glanced at her father and realized that he was clearly on Feng Wu's side. Only those of the Senil grassland were completely in the dark and were convinced that Feng Wu had really passed out from the poison. Master Chu shook his head as he checked Feng Wu's pulse. Chapter 1569 Seventh Prince 1. Chapter 1569 Seventh Prince 1. The poison has been neutralized, but Xiao Wu was so angry just then that she passed out again. Feng Sun's eyes went bloodshot with rage, and he glared at Sapphiro. "Is poisoning Xiao Wu not enough for you? Now that she has taken the antidote, you want to harm her by infuriating her. How can any woman be so malicious? I can't believe that you're a princess. Is this what all princesses of the Senil grassland are like?" Chieftain Senil felt so ashamed and embarrassed, but he couldn't say anything to retort to Feng Sun. No one would have said such things to him, but now, Sapphiro was at fault and targeted by everyone. Moreover, the evidence was irrefutable. So, what could he do? He had no choice but to apologize with a wry smile. "Your Majesty, my daughter is spoiled. I promise I'll discipline her later as she deserved." Emperor Wu only gave him a stern look without saying a word. Chieftain Senil smiled bitterly and told Monham, the captain of his guards, "Move all our tents back 500 meters. Monham's eyes widened. This highland was of vital importance when that seed of spirit source was about to show up. What did it mean for them to move back 500 meters? It meant that the Senil side's chances of obtaining the seed were reduced by 10%. "What are you waiting for?" Chieftain Senil glared at Monham. Despite his reluctance, Monham nodded and went to carry out the order. Emperor Wu secretly rejoiced when Chieftain Senil gave in, but he didn't let it show and still kept his face very stern. He only gave an indifferent nod when Chieftain Senil said that he was leaving with Sapphiro. Emperor Wu was very happy when he saw how Feng Wu pretended to be unconscious on the ground. He felt like smacking the girl when she was defiant and stubborn, but at other times she was almost too smart. For instance, Emperor Wu was very pleased with how Chieftain Senil had been suppressed. When Feng Wu woke up again, it was the middle of the night, and the tent was lit by a single lamp. The flame was only the size of a pea, which made the surroundings dim and blurry. "Miss, you're awake." Feng Wu heard a familiar voice. "Xiao Wu, how do you feel?" That voice was also very familiar. Feng Wu opened her eyes and froze for a second when she saw the two people moving closer toward her. "Qiuling and Chaoga. Am I still on the Senil grassland?" Feng Wu was befuddled. "Xiao Wu, you're finally awake." Sitting on the bed, Chaoga took Feng Wu's hand and looked worried. "Of course you're still there. We were brought here." "By whom?" Feng Wu was a little worried after her initial delight. Of course she missed Chaoga and Qiuling, but she also knew how chaotic the grassland was going to become. His Royal Highness told the 7th Prince to bring them here. Granny Gong walked in with a lamp and smiled. His Royal Highness was worried that you would be lonely here, so he brought them here to keep you company. Do you see now how considerate His Royal Highness is? Granny Gong thought with satisfaction. But Feng Wu only frowned. Jun Linyuan had brought them here. Did he really do that because he was worried that she would feel lonely here? Chapter 1570 7th Prince 2. Chapter 1570 7th Prince 2. Feng Wu shook her head and was convinced that Jun Linyuan had brought Chaoga and Qiuling here to keep her under control. Feng Wu's face darkened at that thought. "Xiao Wu, what's wrong?" Chaoga was perplexed. Feng Wu took a deep breath. "From now on, the Senil grassland will be very dangerous and chaotic, but there are also opportunities. You've arrived just in time." Chaoga looked at Feng Wu. Why did it seem that Xiao Wu wasn't so happy? Why was that? "Xiao Wu," Chaoga wanted to ask, but Feng Wu only waved at her. "It's okay. I need to think about this. Please leave me for a moment." Feng Wu rubbed her forehead. With Chaoga and Qiuling here, she would have to worry about their safety. Not only that, she would also have to create opportunities for them as well. Granny Gong looked at Feng Wu in confusion. She wondered what the Crown Prince had done wrong this time. Chaoga and Qiuling exchanged worried looks. After they left the room, Feng Wu rubbed her forehead, looking exhausted. Sapphiro's whip wasn't covered by just any normal poison. Although Feng Wu could neutralize it, it had still taken some effort. And she had yet to recover completely from it. Feng Wu gathered her thoughts. First, she had to complete the 7th trial and make Jun Linyuan 100% angry. Then, she had to obtain the seed of spirit source to improve herself. After that, she needed to look out for any opportunities for Chaoga and Qiuling as well as consider their safety. And that wasn't all. Rubbing her forehead, Feng Wu realized that every single task was more difficult than the last, which gave her a headache. Hence, she sat up and decided to get some fresh air outside to clear her head. The Senil grassland was cold in winter. Despite the chilly wind, grass still grew in abundance and could be taller than a grown man at its highest and thickest. Feng Wu lay down on higher ground, rested her head on her hands, and looked up at the starry sky. Up in the sky, the Milky Way ran across the sky, and the twinkling stars were mesmerizing. Feng Wu sighed in amazement as she looked at the tall tents in the distance. The dangerous building is 100 feet high, and the stars can be picked by hand. I don't dare speak in a loud voice, for fear of frightening people in the sky. The poem came to Feng Wu's mind, but as soon as she said it out loud, she heard someone cry out in surprise. Gosh! It was an unfamiliar voice. Feng Wu had been feeling very relaxed when she thought that she was all alone. She picked up a stone at the voice and threw it in that direction. Ouch! A teenage boy yelled in pain before he showed his face. Hey! He covered his forehead and glared at Feng Wu. Forget about being afraid to frighten people in the sky, you've already frightened me. Now, Oppo! When he finally saw Feng Wu's face, he was so surprised that he froze on the spot. Seeing the swollen spot on the teenager's neck, Feng Wu realized that she had hit him and felt sorry. Hey, are you alright? Is it serious? She sounded apologetic. You're. The teenager finally realized who she was and pointed at her with a trembling finger. He was utterly surprised. Feng Wu looked at him in bewilderment and wondered if she looked so scary. Why was he so shaken? I only hit you in the neck, but why is your head muddled? Feng Wu threw him a dirty look. Chapter 1571 Seventh Prince, 3. Chapter 1571 Seventh Prince, 3. The teenager stared at Feng Wu and still couldn't utter a coherent sentence after quite a while. Come over here and let me see your wound. Hey, I'm a physician. I won't hurt you. Feng Wu immediately pulled the teenager to her side. He was slightly older than Feng Wu, but he couldn't be more than 15 or 16. He stole a glance at Feng Wu when she pulled at him. But Feng Wu didn't notice as all her attention was on his neck. The energy channel is indeed injured. My aim is quite accurate. After some close inspection, Feng Wu saw that the channel was indeed disrupted as she had foreseen, which pleased her. The teenager rolled his eyes at Feng Wu. So, are you showing off? Ahem, of course not. Feng Wu immediately changed the subject. Although your energy channel is injured, I knew what I was doing, and your main artery is untouched. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to talk now. So, wasn't I nice to you? The teenager was speechless. Feng Wu didn't care how the teenager felt. She took out some ointment and smeared it on his neck. Hey, that's very inappropriate. The pretty teenager protested. Feng Wu smacked him on the head. Nonsense. This is a supreme-level recovery ointment. Would you know how to apply it? The pretty teenager didn't know what to say. No more crap. Activate your energy so that the bruise will disappear more quickly. Feng Wu glanced at the teenager. All right. He nodded obediently. When Feng Wu applied the ointment on him, he could feel her soft hands on his neck. He stole a glance at her, but all her attention was on his wound. Focus, said Feng Wu without looking at him. Sure. The teenager looked down, but he opened his eyes again after a while and stole glances at Feng Wu. He wondered if she really hadn't recognized him, and felt conflicted. As much as he wanted to ask her, he also feared her answer. Do you have worms on you or what? Feng Wu was at the last step of clearing up his bruise, and she cast a grumpy glance at the fidgety teenager. What? No, I don't, he immediately said. He was a very clean and tidy noble young man. If not, why are you squirming? Feng Wu looked at him. Well, I. Feng Wu waved him off before he could think of an excuse. It doesn't matter. I don't care. The pretty teenager didn't know what to say. Feng Wu was as amazing as always. After a quick massage, the bruise on the teenager's neck disappeared. Done. She wrapped things up. Taking out a damp handkerchief, she wiped each of her slender fingers clean. Then, with a wave of her hand, the cloth was set on fire. She was in the habit of using disposable ones. Burning it after one use was a hygienic and safe measure. Hey, why are you leaving already? Hey! Before the pretty teenager realized it, Feng Wu had already walked away. Moreover, she picked up her pace, and soon disappeared into the tall grass. The teenager couldn't catch up with her even if he wanted to. In the end, He could only stare blankly at Feng Wu from behind. He wondered if she really didn't recognize him. Chapter 1572 Seventh Prince 4. Chapter 1572 Seventh Prince 4. Hey, kiddo, what are you doing out here in the middle of the night? Feng Sun came out of nowhere shortly after Feng Wu left. What? The teenager jumped at the sudden sound. When he turned around and saw that it was Feng Sun, he pressed a hand to his chest. Brother Feng, you scared me. Feng Sun rubbed his head grumpily. What are you doing here, staring into empty air? Following the teenager's gaze, Feng Sun saw nothing but the tall grass. Please don't tell me you were looking at a pretty girl. Feng Sun raised an eyebrow and teased him. However, the teenager immediately blushed when he heard those words. That was quite the reaction. Feng Sun immediately stared at the teenager and yelled, Hey, kiddo, was that what you were really doing, looking at a girl? Ahem. Instead of denying it, the teenager smiled shyly. Feng Sun looked like he had just discovered a new land. Well, Jun Linyun, how old are you now? You're interested in girls already. I'll be 16 next year. Blushing, the teenager stared at Feng Sun. Feng Sun laughed. Alright. You're 16 and a big boy now. Hey, by the way. Throwing an arm over the teenager's shoulder, Feng Sun asked, Now, tell me, which family is this girl from? Jun Linyun pursed his lips and smiled shyly. Feng Sun said, Oh my, are you shy? Tell me. How am I going to help you if you don't say anything? How are you going to get the girl if you keep acting so shy? Jun Linyun turned his head and agreed with his brother Feng, who was a veteran in such things. Moreover, that pretty girl didn't seem that easy to get along with either. At that thought, Jun Linyun nodded before he shook his head. Feng Sun was confused. Why are you nodding and shaking your head at the same time? Jun Linyun said, Brother Feng, I want to tell you, but I don't know the answer. What? Feng Sun looked at Jun Linyun as if he was looking at an idiot. You don't know which family she's from? Jun Linyun shook his head. Feng Sun asked, Do you know her name, then? Jun Linyun tilted his head and realized that he had only seen her twice, and each time, he hadn't spoken to her properly. So, he shook his head again. Feng Sun wanted to smack him in the head. At least you know her surname, don't you? Jun Linyun said, HM? I don't think so. Feng Sun was speechless. You don't know anything. How can you be in love with her when you don't know anything? Did she trick you? A lot of girls are like that nowadays. Before Feng Sun could finish, Jun Linyun shook his head repeatedly. No, it's not like that. I only met her once and I hardly talked to her. She didn't keep it from me on purpose. Feng Sun didn't know what to say. You're the seventh prince. Every person in the Junwu Empire should know you. Since she knows who you are and she's still playing hard to get after deliberately getting close to you. Well, Jun Linyun, you've been swindled. No, it's not like that. It's not. Jun Linyun tried to explain. She didn't know who I was. She really didn't. And how do you know that? Chewing on a blade of grass, Feng Sun rested his head on his hands as he chatted with Jun Linyun. Chapter 1573 It Has to Be Her 1. Chapter 1573 It Has to Be Her 1. Jun Linyun said, She took my horse the first time I saw her and left me with a spiritual stone, saying that she was buying my horse. How ridiculous is that? I'm the seventh prince. The last thing I need is a spiritual stone. And do you know how rude she was? She kicked me off my horse. Feng Sun laughed until his belly ached. Ha ha! Brother Feng, stop laughing. Jun Linyun felt angry and ashamed. But Feng Sun laughed even louder. Ha ha! That's hilarious. A prince like you was kicked off of his horse and robbed. Who was that girl? She sounds so lovely. Jun Linyun said grumpily. No, she wasn't lovely at all. She was abominable. Feng Sun said, "Ha ha ha, what about the second time?" The mention of the second meeting made Jun Linyun feel even more conflicted. He rubbed his neck where it still seemed a little swollen. "What?" The sharp-eyed Feng Sun immediately noticed it, and he raised an eyebrow. "Linyun, what happened to your neck? Did the girl kiss you?" "No, she didn't. She hit me with a rock," Jun Linyun said grumpily. "She hit you with a rock? Ha ha ha." Feng Sun guffawed and pounded his fists on the ground, laughing so hard that he couldn't stand straight. Jun Linyun was infuriated, but he couldn't offer any excuse, and his face went scarlet red. "Hey, are you done laughing?" He glared at Feng Sun. Feng Sun finally stopped laughing, but he was still holding his stomach. "Ha ha, Linyun, that sounds so unfortunate. Ha ha ha." Feng Sun then patted him on the shoulder. "Don't worry. When we find her, I'll teach that arrogant girl a lesson." Jun Linyun said hastily, "Brother, can we skip the lesson?" Feng Sun asked, "What?" Jun Linyun said, "Brother, let's just find her, but don't do anything to her. Is that all right?" Feng Sun looked at him in bewilderment. "The girl picked on you and ignored your authority. It's not like you're just a commoner. How can you live with that?" Jun Linyun said, "Well, it's not that bad." Feng Sun suddenly saw the light. Eyes shining, he looked Jun Linyun up and down. "Oh my, Linyun, are you falling for her?" Jun Linyun cleared his throat. Feng Sun cried out, "Gosh! This is big news. Our Linyun is in love. Are you thinking straight? After what she did to you, you actually like her." Because Jun Linyun had followed Jun Linyuan and Feng Sun around since he was little, Feng Sun treated him like a little brother and would talk to him freely. Jun Linyun cleared his throat. Feng Sun patted his shoulder. "Stop coughing. If you like her, go get her. Coughing won't get you anywhere." Jun Linyun's eyes flickered. Can I really do that?" Feng Sun almost rolled his eyes. "Of course you can. The girl may be rude, vulgar, and a bit violent, but you like her, don't you?" Jun Linyun said, "Yes, I do. I really like her." Chapter 1574, It Has to Be Her, Too. Chapter 1574, It Has to Be Her, Too. Feng Sun said, "Do it then. It's not a big deal." Jun Linyun nodded and looked expectantly at Feng Sun. "Brother Feng, you're going to help me, aren't you?" Feng Sun liked the feeling of being needed, so he patted his chest with a smile. "Don't worry. I'll help you with courting the girl. But remember this, when she's yours, you have to discipline her when needed. Don't let her go over your head. Got it?" Jun Linyun was elated. "I'll remember that." Poor Feng Sun. He had no idea that the girl Jun Linyun had fallen for was Feng Wu. Had he known better, he would smack his own head. "But our top priority right now is to find that girl," Feng Sun said. With Feng Sun by his side, all Jun Linyun needed to do was follow his instructions, so he immediately nodded. Feng Sun said, "To find the girl, we need to find the name list first. After all, everyone on this trip is registered. With the list, we can eliminate the names one by one. In the end, the rude girl won't be able to hide anymore." Jun Linyun nodded repeatedly. "There are only 2 copies of this list. His Majesty has one, and Boss Jun has the other. Come, let's go to your brother." Jun Linyun could hardly contain his excitement. Soon, he would know the naughty girl's name. Jun Linyuan had been trying to make some progress lately, so he had been spending most of his time meditating. However, Jun Linyun was quite lucky. He and Feng Sun arrived when Jun Linyuan happened to wake up. "Brother, please help me." Jun Linyun threw himself at Jun Linyuan as soon as he saw him. Jun Linyuan frowned a little and gave Feng Sun a grumpy glance. Feng Sun pursed his lips. "Boss Jun, Linyun is a big boy now. He's fallen for a girl he has to marry." "He has to marry?" Jun Linyuan gave Jun Linyun a strange look. Jun Linyun immediately nodded. That's right. It has to be her. Brother, please help me. Jun Linyuan narrowed his eyes. What girl? She had to have a death wish, seducing his talented brother like this. Jun Linyun and Feng Sun both smiled bitterly. We wouldn't have come to you if we knew who she is. Crossing his arms, Feng Sun leaned against the wall. He looked full of spirit. Well, Jun Linyuan raised his eyebrows. As a matter of fact, your brother doesn't even know her name. He fell in love with her after she picked on him twice. Feng Sun was greatly amused. Nonsense. Jun Linyuan stared at Jun Linyun with an imposing look in his eyes. Jun Linyun had always been afraid of Jun Linyuan, so he was terrified when he saw that look. But he still summoned up his courage and gritted his teeth. Brother, she's the only love of my life. If I can't marry her, I won't marry anyone else. Please help me. Jun Linyuan narrowed his eyes. Are you sure? Chapter 1575, It Has to Be Her, 3. Chapter 1575, It Has to Be Her, 3. Jun Linyun nodded solemnly. I'm very sure. Jun Linyuan snorted. If that person has this much of an impact on you, we have to get rid of her. Brother! Jun Linyun cried out. His heart was pounding now. Jun Linyuan ignored him and only glanced at Feng. Feng was indeed Jun Linyuan's most reliable confidant. One look from Jun Linyuan and Feng knew what he wanted. Soon, Feng fetched a small, exquisite chest. It was a fine chest made of purple sun wood, and one could tell how well maintained it was from its vivid color. Feng opened the chest to reveal the booklets neatly packed together inside. Feng said, Here's the entire list of everyone in His Majesty's entourage with all their information, including a portrait and their family background. Please feel free to look through them. Jun Linyun stared at the chest, feeling so excited that his fingers trembled. He really wanted to know who the girl was. Feng Sun was curious as well. Let me help you. I'd like to know who this girl is. After what she did to you, how can you be so infatuated and mesmerized? Xian Yi had been holding his sword on the side with an indifferent look on his face, but even he was a little intrigued. As they were speaking, they started. Feng Sun took all the booklets out of the chest and told Jun Linyun, Let's search by family, one at a time. Jun Linyun said, Sure. The Zhou family, the Dugu family, the Mu manor, they even looked through the Feng family. But because of Feng Wu and Feng Yanfeng's previous conflict, she had been banished from the clan, and her name wasn't included in the Feng clan's booklet anymore. As for the booklet of the Crown Prince's residence, it was so easily overlooked, and the two men didn't think of looking at it at all. Therefore, they read every booklet from front to back, and after going through almost all the booklets, she's not there. Feng Sun looked at Jun Linyun in disbelief. Jun Linyun shook his head. That's odd. Feng Sun rubbed his chin. Is it possible that the girl isn't one of ours? That's the only explanation. What's that? Jun Linyun obviously trusted Feng Sun. But he could never have expected for Feng Sun to be so wrong. The only possibility is, the girl is a member of the Senile Grassland. Feng Sun smiled wryly. If that's the case, we'll have to cover a lot of ground. Moreover, we've only just fallen out with Chieftain Senile today. Ahem. Jun Linyun gritted his teeth. Brothers, I've made up my mind. I have to marry this girl regardless of who she is. She's the only one I want for the rest of my life. Please help me. Despite his wry smile, Feng Sun was secretly alarmed. He knew that this girl had to be spectacular to have mesmerized Jun Linyun to this extent. He wanted to find out who the girl was more than ever. Everyone in the room wanted to find the teenager's dream girl. But if they had known that it was actually Feng Wu, the expressions on their faces would be so interesting. Feng Wu had no idea that she had become their target. When she returned, she found another person in her tent. Face buried in her arms, she was fast asleep over the table. On the other hand, Chioling was especially gifted at taking care of daily affairs. "Miss, please have something to eat. You shouldn't walk around on an empty stomach." Chioling had always looked after Feng Wu well. "By the way, miss," said Chioling. Chapter 1576, Mysterious Girl 1. Chapter 1576, Mysterious Girl 1. Chioling said to Feng Wu in an amused tone, "I heard that Prince Jun Linyun is searching everywhere for someone." Prince Jun Linyun. This was the second time Feng Wu heard Jun Linyun's name mentioned, but since he was of no consequence to her, she wasn't really interested. Although Feng Wu wasn't interested, Chowga, who liked Buzz, was intrigued and asked curiously, "What now? What's that about? Jun Linyun looks quite dumb, but he's very funny." Chioling smiled and said, "I don't know exactly what it's about. I only heard that he's looking for some girl, and he's been going from one family to the next." Chowga said, "What? Is Prince Jun Linyun that eager?" "Who's eager?" Feng Sun and Xian Yi came in from outside, followed by the most handsome teenager. It was none other than Jun Linyuan himself. Chowga sounded excited when she said, "Haven't you heard? Jun Linyun is anxiously looking through the women of every family. What else can it be, if he isn't eager for women?" Feng Sun grumpily knocked Chowga on the forehead. "Nonsense. It's not like that at all." "Not like that? What's it like, then? Is the rumor wrong?" Chowga asked in bewilderment. As Feng Sun and Chowga bantered with each other, Jun Linyuan's brooding gaze landed on Feng Wu as always. Involuntarily, Feng Wu looked at him as well. Their eyes met. It was as if electric currents were flickering in the air, but no one else could see the sparks. The Crown Prince's unblinking gaze was fixed on Feng Wu, and his eyes seemed to grow even more brooding. Involuntarily, Feng Wu avoided his intense gaze. Her heart was racing as it pounded hard like that of a young deer. No one noticed the subtle interaction between Feng Wu and Jun Linyuan, because everyone was watching Feng Sun. Feng Sun was cheerfully explaining to Chowga, "Well, you don't know what happened. Linyun really isn't looking for a future wife. He wants to get revenge." Chowga's eyes widened. "What? Did someone pick on Prince Jun Linyun? Who would dare do that? He's a royal prince. He helped us a lot by bringing us here, and I have to show my gratitude. Feng Sun, tell me, who offended Prince Jun Linyun? I'll get revenge for him." Chowga was also very impulsive and would act before she thought things through. Rolling up her sleeves, she wanted to offer her help. Feng Sun pressed her back down when she bolted up from her chair and said grumpily, "Don't rush it. We also want to know who displeased him, but we can't find the person." Chowga asked, "Is that person here in the campsite?" Feng Sun nodded. Chowga asked, "What's her name?" Feng Sun shook his head. Chowga stared at Feng Sun. "You don't even know her name? What does she look like, then?" Feng Sun said, "Not very attractive, according to Linyun's description." Chowga said, "Well, it won't be easy to find them." Feng Sun nodded. Feng Wu was attracted to their conversation, but she never thought that she would be the one they were searching for. Until, tilting her head, Chowga curiously jabbed a finger in Feng Sun's arm. "Talk to me then. How did this plain girl pick on Prince Jun Linyun? Did she take advantage of him?" "Ha ha." Feng Wu was intrigued as well, although she had never seen Jun Linyun before. Chapter 1577, Mysterious Girl 2. Chapter 1577, Mysterious Girl 2. Take advantage of him? No, it isn't like that. The girl's simply strong and violent. Guess what? Linyun said that when they met for the first time, the girl kicked him off his horse before taking it and riding off. Wow! Chowga's eyes lit up when she heard that. Seriously? That's Prince Jun Linyun, the well-respected royal prince who enjoys wealth and honor. He was kicked off his horse. Feng Sun found it amusing as well. Right? That girl's impressive, isn't she? Yes. I like her. Chowga gave a thumbs up. She's my cup of tea. I like the sound of her. While Feng Sun and Chowga were chatting happily, Feng Wu's face stiffened. She had done the same thing once, kicking someone off their horse before riding off. What did that poor teenager whom she kicked off look like? Tilting her head, Feng Wu tried to remember, but she could only recall how angrily he had hopped around. However, she simply couldn't remember his face. Poor teenager. Feng Wu secretly offered him her sympathies. Over on the other side, Feng Sun and Chowga went on chatting happily. Feng Sun said, "Ha ha, you have no idea what happened next. The girl did something even more awesome. In the middle of the night yesterday, right in the meadow behind our campsite." Chowga's eyes widened and she asked curiously, "In the middle of the night in that meadow where the grass is taller than a grown man? Oh my! It's not like that." Feng Sun smacked her on the forehead. "What are you thinking?" In fact, Feng Wu was curious as well. Before she knew it, she had moved closer and grinned at Feng Sun. She had been in that meadow at the back last night as well, but she hadn't noticed anything. Seeing that Feng Wu was interested as well, Feng Sun was satisfied. He smiled and said, "That girl is so amazing." In their second meeting, she hit Lin Yun with a rock right away. That poor boy. After finally managing to catch up with us, he was hit by a rock before he could take a nap in the meadow. Feng Wu didn't hear the rest of his words. The only thing she could hear repeatedly in her head was that Prince Jun Linyun had been hit by a rock. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. If she remembered correctly, she had indeed hit a teenager in that meadow the night before by accident. And if memory served her right, she had also taken a teenager's horse back in the imperial capital. Were they the same person? Although she couldn't remember his face, the guy had been quite jumpy on both occasions. So, they might be the same person. So, that really was Prince Jun Linyun. And she was the one he was searching for. Feng Wu felt conflicted and thought that she should explain herself. However, before she could say anything, Feng Sun grinned and said, "That's why Linyun has been turning this place upside down for that girl." Chowga said, "He's a prince. After what he went through, he has to get his revenge." You would normally be right. No one would like such a rude and violent girl. But Linyun isn't just any normal teenager. Feng Sun was utterly bemused. Chapter 1578, Mysterious Girl, 3. Chapter 1578, Mysterious Girl, 3. After what Linyun went through, do you know what he said? He said that he's in love with that girl. Feng Sun said. What? Chowga almost jumped to her feet. That's right. That was what he said. Ha ha ha. Chowga laughed so hard that she was almost in tears. Seriously? Prince Jun Linyun fell for her after everything? Feng Sun said, he's not just in love. He said that she was the only one he wanted to marry. Chowga looked dumbfounded and gave a thumbs up. That's amazing. He's unbelievable. While they were chatting happily, they didn't realize that Feng Wu's face had almost turned blue. She already felt awkward enough when she learned that the teenager she had mistreated was Prince Jun Linyun. After hearing Feng Sun's revelation, she didn't know how to express what she was feeling. She cleared her throat and chuckled awkwardly. Is it possible that Prince Jun Linyun was only joking? Joking? No, no, no. How can he joke about such a thing? He's never been so serious. Feng Sun went on in a serious tone. After we came back last night, we took the name list and checked everyone. We've already circled all the possible suspects. Feng Wu looked perplexed. Feng Sun said proudly, after that, we examined each clan in turn, and we'll meet all the girls in the campsite. I believe that we'll definitely find the girl. Feng Wu looked perplexed. Feng Sun patted his chest proudly. Do you know who came up with such an amazing idea? Feng Wu asked. Who? Feng Sun raised an eyebrow. Of course it was me. Apart from me, what other genius could have come up with such a good idea? Feng Wu didn't know what to say. By the way, Xiao Wu, you're a smart girl yourself. Can you think of a way to find the girl quickly? Feng Sun asked for her help. Feng Wu wanted to roll her eyes. Actually, there was a way. If Feng Sun hadn't mentioned the part where Jun Linyun said that he had to marry her and no one else, Feng Wu would have turned herself in already. But now this was simply too embarrassing. Feng Wu decided to talk it over with Jun Linyun in private instead of revealing herself. Don't you have any idea? Feng Sun looked curiously at Feng Wu. Feng Wu was speechless. What idea can I possibly have? Feng Sun said, just help Linyun. Can't you do that? Feng Wu wanted to roll her eyes at him. Was he asking her to help Jun Linyun with catching her? Xiao Wu, Feng Sun took her arm and swayed it back and forth. However, as soon as his fingers touched Feng Wu's skin, there was an intense gaze on him that felt like a shot from an arrow. Ouch! Feng Sun involuntarily drew back his hands, feeling as if boiling water had just been poured over him. That was right. Boss Jun was watching. By the way, why isn't Prince Jun Linyun with you guys? Weren't you searching each clan? Chaoga asked curiously, resting her chin on her hands. Feng Sun shrugged. Jun Wuxia took him away. Chaoga looked out the door curtain. It was true. A short distance away, tears were rolling down Jun Wuxia's cheeks as she spoke to Jun Linyun. That displeased Chaoga. Dropping the door curtain, she said, "What's Prince Jun Linyun's problem? Can't he tell that Jun Wuxia is up to no good?" Chapter 1579 Mysterious Girl 4 Chapter 1579 Mysterious Girl 4 Feng Sun only found her amusing. You silly girl. They're still siblings after all. Jun Linyun was Empress Dugu's son and Jun Wuxia's own brother. Of course the two of them were close. However, Jun Linyun was an odd prince. Instead of hanging out with his own sister, he had always followed Jun Linyuan around since he was little. For that, Empress Dugu had reprimanded him more times than he could count. She was secretly furious. However, Jun Linyun simply wouldn't listen to her. When he had enough of her, he would run away on his own. Empress Dugu was infuriated, and in the end, she just let him be and let him do whatever he wanted. Holding Jun Linyun's hand, Jun Wuxia wept. Brother, that Feng Wu is such a bad person. She was so mean to me. Jun Linyun said, all right. Jun Wuxia said, don't play with her when you meet her in the future. Don't be nice to her. Don't even look at her. Otherwise, I'll be mad at you. Got it? Trying to avoid as much trouble as possible, Jun Linyun waved at her. All right, I'll remember. Seeing that Jun Linyun couldn't wait to run away, Jun Wuxia sighed inwardly. Why wouldn't her brother get along with her? By the way, what do you know about our brother, the Crown Prince? As soon as she asked the question, Jun Linyun stared at her. Sister, we had a deal. You can't ask me questions about brother Crown Prince. I won't tell you anything. Jun Linyun turned serious, and the look in his eyes had never been so cold. Jun Wuxia stiffened. She was furious, but she couldn't utter a word. Fine. Go away now. Take care of yourself, and don't get bullied again. You're a royal princess after all. How can you let Feng Wu do those things to you? What a shame. Jun Linyun didn't stay in the imperial capital too often, so he didn't know much about such news. Jun Wuxia had said a lot of bad things about Feng Wu just then, so he didn't think much of Feng Wu at all. Remember, never play with Feng Wu. Got it? I'm your closest sister. Remember that. Jun Wuxia reminded Jun Linyun repeatedly as she held his hand. Sure. Jun Linyun finally sent Jun Wuxia on her way. Gosh, girls are so much trouble. Seeing that Jun Wuxia had left, Jun Linyun turned around and headed for Feng Wu's tent. Meanwhile, in the tent, Chaoga had been looking outside the entire time, so she saw everything. She immediately told the others, "Princess Jun Wuxia has finally left. Prince Jun Linyun is coming this way." Hearing that, Feng Wu almost jumped up. Looking out through the lifted curtain, she saw the pretty face of that teenager. He really was the teenager she had picked on. So, he really was the seventh prince. Feng Wu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. So, was he coming here now? As soon as he walked in, he would see her and recognize her. After that, Feng Wu could think of 100 ways to avoid him if she wanted, so that he wouldn't recognize her. But, on second thought, she realized that the problem would always be there, like a ticking time bomb which would explode sooner or later. If that was the case, better sooner than later. After figuring that out, Feng Wu sat down and kept her gaze on the door curtain. She didn't intend to run away and was ready to face the truth. Meanwhile, Jun Linyun was approaching. 100 m, 50 m, 30 m. Chapter 1580 Mysterious Girl, 5. Chapter 1580 Mysterious Girl, 5. Chaoga had become quite familiar with Jun Linyun after their journey here together. Hence, she waved at him through the window. "Jun Linyun, come and sit with us." She had left a good impression on Jun Linyun, and he thought about coming in. However, Granny Gong lifted the curtain. "Your Royal Highness, please come in." "His Royal Highness is here as well, and so is young Lord Feng." Jun Linyun was about to step in, but he suddenly remembered what Jun Wuxia had said just then. "Don't meet Feng Wu. Don't play with Feng Wu. Don't get close to Feng Wu." Turning around, Jun Linyun saw that Jun Wuxia was still staring at him from a distance. She looked like she was going to rush over and cry her eyes out if he dared go in. Jun Linyun was speechless. That woman was so much trouble. His dream girl was so much better. She didn't do such nonsense. She was decisive in her actions and never cried. After sighing inwardly, Jun Linyun waved at them. "Brother Feng, I'm not going in. You guys come out here." Feng Sun said grumpily, "Get in here and meet little Feng Wu," because she was going to be his future sister-in-law. However, Jun Linyun waved his hands. "No, that won't be necessary. I shouldn't meet her. Otherwise, my sister will cry her eyes out. Brother Feng, come out here already. We need to visit the next clan. It's the Feng clan's turn." Feng Sun still wanted to hang out with Feng Wu for a while, but Jun Linyun kept urging him. "Brother Feng, don't you want to know what that girl looks like? Aren't you curious who she is? Don't you want to find her quickly? Brother Feng." "Fine, fine. Stop nagging." With no other choice, Feng Sun had to stand up and say goodbye to Feng Wu. Feng Wu was crying inwardly. She didn't know how to describe her feelings anymore. Jun Linyun wouldn't come in, so she decided that it wasn't her fault. Poor Jun Linyun. The real Feng Wu was only a few steps away from him, and he wouldn't be able to find that girl anywhere else. When Feng Sun came to find Feng Wu at dinner time, Chaoga asked curiously about the outcome. "Did you find her? Did Prince Jun Linyun find his dream girl?" Chaoga asked curiously as she handed Feng Sun some skewered meat. Feng Sun shook his head as he wolfed down his food. He ate more than a dozen in a row. Only then did he slow down a little. "We couldn't find her," said Feng Sun, smiling wryly. "That's just the strangest thing. We checked all the girls of the right age in the campsite according to the list, even the chambermaids and servant girls, but we still couldn't find her. Did she run off already?" Chaoga said, "Isn't this entire area covered with a formation? No outsider can get in, and we can't get out even if we wanted to." Feng Sun nodded. "Because the spiritual essence is about to recover, the formation on this spirit source land has activated. It's true. No one can get in or out. The deadline was right after you arrived." Chaoga nodded. That is to say, that girl has to be in the campsite. Is it possible that she's not one of us? Feng Sun said. I thought the same, but according to Lin Yun, that girl is definitely one of us. She didn't look like a grasslander. Chapter 1581 Mysterious Girl 6. Chapter 1581 Mysterious Girl 6. Chowga reminded him. But it isn't just the Sinal people who reside on the Sinal grassland, so it's not a surprise if her appearance and skin color are similar to ours. Feng Sun and Chowga sat and murmured among themselves as they chewed on the meat. Every now and then, they would give a toast with the strong liquor of the grassland. They seemed to be enjoying themselves a lot. Feng Wu rolled her eyes in resignation. She was still roasting the meat, but they had started eating, drinking, and chatting already. Feng Sun ate the skewered meat with relish. You have a point. Since the spiritual essence hasn't fully recovered yet, we've decided that we'll spend tonight on Sinal's side. All by yourselves? Will they allow you to do that? Chowga was a gossip lover as well, so she was very interested in the matter. Feng Wu couldn't help but prod them. Why are you so interested in someone else's business? If you really have the time, you should think about how you can grab the opportunity once the spiritual essence recovers. How can it be someone else's business? Feng Sun and Chowga spoke in unison. Prince Jun Linyun isn't someone else. They spoke in unison again. Looking at each other, Feng Sun and Chowga laughed loudly. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. Why did it seem to her that these two people understood each other especially well? Ignoring Feng Wu, Feng Sun told Chowga, "Don't worry. I've invited the second prince from the other side over. He'll be here in a moment." The second prince? Feng Wu glanced at Feng Sun. What's that about? Feng Sun said, You've seen the second prince. He was the teenager on Chieftain Sinal's right when they came to greet His Majesty. Feng Wu said, Yes, I saw him. But what's he doing here? Feng Sun chuckled. Princess Sapphiro is his older sister, and she offended you. Although Chieftain Sinal has given us more camping ground, His Majesty was the one who gained, not you. Feng Wu went on roasting the meat as she said casually, That thing is still relevant? I thought we're done with that already. To her, it was indeed something she wouldn't dwell on. Moreover, she had set Sapphiro up as well, and there had been no way for the princess to fight back. All in all, not only hadn't Feng Wu lost anything, she had also been the winner. But Feng Sun didn't take it lightly. After what she did to you, of course it's serious. I won't let them brush it away just like that. Feng Sun said indignantly. I didn't become your brother for nothing. Chowga hadn't heard about it yet, so she asked what that was about. Feng Sun then told her everything. What? That Sapphiro picked on Xiaowu? How dare she? Chowga usually seemed quite nice. However, when Feng Wu was involved, she would lose her temper in no time. Sit down, sit down. Feng Sun already knew Chowga very well and pulled Chowga back down. Girl, you're so quick-tempered. Why can't you be a little calmer? Hey! It's about Xiaowu, of course I can't be calm. Chowga glared at Feng Sun. No, I need to find that lousy princess and settle accounts with her. No one can pick on Xiaowu. Feng Sun said grumpily, That Sapphiro is a level 5 spiritual elder. Those casual works shocked Chowga. She clenched her fists in frustration. Chapter 1582, Mysterious Girl 7. Chapter 1582, Mysterious Girl 7. She was a mere level 9 spiritual grandmaster at the moment, not even a spiritual elder yet. The difference in their capability was too big. Chowga smacked her own head in frustration. It's all my fault. I haven't practiced hard enough. I'm too slow. Feng Wu immediately stopped the silly girl and comforted her. What are you doing? You're already a level 9 spiritual grandmaster. You're so close to becoming a spiritual elder. If you can use this opportunity well, becoming a spiritual elder won't be a problem for you at all. Just think about it. How fast have you been making progress since we met? No one else can do the same thing, right? It's the same for both of us. We wasted a lot of time in the past 5 years. Chowga, you have to believe this. Given enough time, we'll rise to the top again. When that happens, no one will pick on us ever again. That's when I'll need your protection. Alright? Encouraged by Feng Wu, Chowga took her hand and said solemnly, Xiao Wu, have faith in me. I'll work as hard as I can in my cultivation, no matter how much hardship I'll have to endure. I'll become so awesome one day that I'll be able to protect you from all the bad guys. Feng Wu said, yes. Feng Sun couldn't stand it anymore. Hey, both of you, that's enough. Plus, Duan Chowga, you don't need to worry at all. With Boss Jun around, no one will pick on Feng Wu. Chowga flared up when Jun Linyuan was mentioned. No one can pick on Xiao Wu when His Royal Highness is around? Then why did Sapphiro mistreat her? Feng Sun said, well. Chowga said, plus, he was the reason for it. He's like this big flashy flower that attracts all sorts of bees and butterflies. Feng Sun said, well. Chowga then took Feng Wu's hand. Xiao Wu, His Royal Highness is unreliable. Can you maybe not fall in love with him? Feng Sun said, hey Duan Chowga. While Feng Sun was feeling frustrated, Chowga looked at Feng Wu with great anticipation. Feng Wu was speechless. She looked at the two people in resignation. Who told you I'm in love with Jun Linyuan? Asked Feng Wu. Because you're always going to him, said Chowga grumpily. Feng Sun raised an eyebrow. See? Even Chowga is saying that. I'm not lying, right? Feng Wu rolled her eyes. I'm not always going to Jun Linyuan. I have my reasons. Really? What might they be? Feng Sun winked at her. He loved teasing Feng Wu, especially when she got riled up. What reasons? Feng Wu rolled her eyes at him again. She couldn't reveal her broken star piece mission, which could save her beautiful master. Even if she could tell them, no one would believe her. Well, Feng Wu heaved a long sigh. Feng Sun smiled. See? You can't find an excuse now. Gosh, why is it so difficult for you to admit that you like Boss Jun? Chowga also looked at Feng Wu with a serious expression. Feng Wu shook her head. I don't. I definitely won't fall in love with Jun Linyuan. Never. Ahem. Someone cleared their throat a short distance away. Immediately, everyone turned to look. A chill ran down Feng Sun's spine when he saw who it was, because his aloof, graceful Boss Jun was standing right there. His inky black eyes were as cold as the night and were two bottomless pits. His face was equally dark. Chapter 1583 Mysterious Girl 8 Chapter 1583 Mysterious Girl 8 The cold air coming out of him could freeze a person to ice. B. Boss Jun. Embarrassed, Feng Sun immediately shot a warning glance at Feng Wu. He didn't need to think to know that Feng Wu had offended Boss Jun with what she said, so he prompted her to say something to make up for it. Feng Sun thought that Jun Linyuan would flip his sleeves and walk off like he always did, but this time he kept his unblinking inky black eyes on Feng Wu as he walked over and sat down on a stone. Immediately the air seemed to freeze. No one dared to speak nor make a sound. Ahem! Feng Sun stepped out to save the day. Because he knew that if he didn't say anything, Boss Jun would probably stare at Feng Wu for the whole day. Well, Feng Sun tried to find something to say, so he asked Xian Yi, why don't I see Linyun anywhere? He hasn't run off to cry, has he? Xian Yi shook his head. Her Majesty the Empress summoned him. Feng Sun nodded. Jun Linyun was Empress Dugu's own son, but to her frustration, he had never been close to the second prince, who was his own brother. Instead, He had followed Jun Linyuan around since he was little. Therefore, Empress Dugu would lecture Jun Linyun whenever she could. But she didn't have much opportunity to do so, because Jun Linyun loved to roam afar, and she could never keep him close. Feng Sun went on trying to change the subject. Poor Linyun. By the way, does Her Majesty know that he's determined to marry that unnaturally strong girl? Holding his sword between his arms, Xian Yi nodded. Feng Sun grinned. He'll have a miserable time then. Her Majesty will give him a very long speech. Xian Yi nodded again. Feng Sun was speechless. Xian Yi was such a bad conversation partner. But if he didn't say anything, the air would feel so icy cold that it hurt his back. Xiao Wu, what do you think of Lin Yun's matter? Do you think he'll be able to find that girl? Feng Sun went on talking nonsense. Jun Lin Yuan's cold but intense gaze gave Feng Wu the creep. Hearing Feng Sun speak, she immediately jumped on the wagon. The unnaturally strong girl? Feng Wu was speechless. Feng Sun said, "That's right. I used to call her the rude girl, but Linyun wouldn't let me, saying that it sullied her. But of course she's rude. She hit a person as soon as she saw them." Feng Wu couldn't stand it. Not necessarily. Maybe she's just an ordinary girl who had to take his horse because she was in a hurry. Moreover, she might have given him some spiritual stones as compensation for it. Since no one would speak up for her, Feng Wu had to explain it herself. "How did you know that she gave him spiritual stones?" "Right," Feng Sun smacked his head. "I remember now. Linyun did seem to mention something about some spiritual stones, but I forgot about it. I never mentioned it to you, so how did you know?" Whoosh. Instantly, all eyes were on Feng Wu. Feng Wu said, "Well." Jun Linyuan's eyes were so sharp that Feng Wu felt her skin burn a little. She cleared her throat. "I guessed it. Why can't I? Just because you can't guess it doesn't mean that someone as smart as me can't." Feng Sun scratched his head. "Something doesn't feel right, but I can't say what it is." Chapter 1584 Prince Knights Now 1. Chapter 1584 Prince Knights Now 1. Feng Wu prayed that Feng Sun would stay as thick as he was now and never see the light. Just then, they heard some light footsteps. Feng Sun turned around and saw. Well, the second prince of the Senile Grassland was indeed here. He didn't come alone. 2 guards followed him, and they were carrying a medium-sized chest between them. Jun Linyuan's intense gaze was on Feng Wu the entire time as his eyes followed her everywhere. It was too obvious for anyone to miss. The young prince noticed Jun Linyuan as soon as he arrived. Something barely noticeable flickered in his eyes. No one knew the meaning behind that look. The young prince then walked up to Jun Linyuan. He greeted Jun Linyuan with a bow. But Jun Linyuan was still watching Feng Wu, as if nothing else concerned him. He ignored the young prince's greeting. Feng Sun immediately walked up, grabbed the young prince's hand and smiled. "His Royal Highness is preoccupied. Let's not disturb him. Please follow me." He then dragged the teenager aside. This wasn't the young prince's first time meeting Jun Linyuan, so he was already used to the crown prince's indifference. Seeing this, he only nodded with a smile. "This is Princess Feng Wu, I presume?" The young prince looked apologetically at Feng Wu. "My apologies. Princess Feng Wu was mistreated by my sister." With a wave of his hand, the young prince's 2 guards stepped forward and opened the chest together. The young prince was no more than 16 or 17 years of age. He was fair and gentle with a mild smile, and was quite a pleasant, good-looking Tianger. The handsome prince smiled when the chest was opened. "Princess Feng Wu, this is a dragon spiritual stone, which can only be found on the Senile Grassland. I hope you'll like it." A dragon spiritual stone. Before Feng Wu could say anything, the tiger cub started howling in her ring. "Roar! I want it! Roar!" The cub had been lying flat on its stomach, but as soon as it saw the dragon's spiritual stone, it wouldn't stop jumping up and down. It looked adorable. What is it used for? Feng Wu glanced at the young prince. The prince explained with a smile, it can help with improving one's cultivation. It doesn't do much for a human being's spiritual essence, but where spiritual pets are concerned, the more talented a pet is, the more improvements it'll make. It's equivalent to changing the body inside out. Feng Wu thought to herself, no wonder the cub's so excited. It knows how good the stone is. Only one. Feng Wu glanced at the prince. The prince said, well, they're extremely rare, and something of this grade is even rarer. Rare, but not impossible to find, right? Crossing his arms, Feng Sun smiled at the prince. The prince pondered for a moment before he took a deep breath and said, if you want something a grade lower. Feng Sun shook his head. It has to be the same grade as this dragon's spiritual stone. Wouldn't something of a lower grade seem insincere? Because the young prince grew up in the south, he didn't have a typical Sinal grasslander's name. He was called Nightsnow. Prince Nightsnow looked troubled. Chapter 1585 Prince Nightsnow 2. Chapter 1585 Prince Nightsnow 2. In the end, he smiled wryly and said, well, it's not impossible to find. Actually, my sister has another one. He then glanced at his guard. The guard quickly walked away to carry out the order. Feng Sun looked at Prince Nightsnow with a smile and found this teenager much easier to get along with than his domineering older brother. Here's another chest. Nightsnow turned back to Feng Wu, still smiling mildly. The chest was opened and a small, exquisite seal lay inside. It was pure white and made of jade, but it was warm to the touch, as if it was a living thing. This is, Feng Wu looked at him curiously. Nightsnow's smile was genteel, and his voice was warm. It's a 10-direction seal. My sister, I mean Princess Sapphiro, who injured you, found this treasure in her vault. She's giving it to you to express her apology. A 10-direction seal? What's it for? Feng Wu played with it in her hands. Nightsnow coughed into his fair hand and looked embarrassed. Feng Wu asked, yes. Nightsnow smiled wryly. It used to be the seal of the female general, but that position has been removed so, well, since it's made of warm jade, it'll be good for your health if you keep it on you. Feng Wu said, in other words, it's just a pretty object. Nightsnow cleared his throat. Well, Feng Sun smirked. So this is how Princess Sapphiro expresses her apology. Nightsnow couldn't say anything. Take it back. We're not important enough for her apology. Picking up the seal, Feng Sun was about to toss it back. Just then, Little Phoenix shrieked. Arg! Don't! Feng Wu thought that her eardrums were going to burst. Little Phoenix paced around in the ring, distraught. The seal is only a shell. It definitely has some treasure inside. You must have it. By then, Nightsnow had taken the seal back with a wry smile. All right, I'll take the seal back. In that case, Princess Feng Wu, why don't you come to our place and pick something you like from our vault? Feng Sun liked the idea a lot. However, Feng Wu waved her hands. That won't be necessary. Since you've already bought the seal here, the seal it is, then. Don't worry about it. Feng Sun stared at Feng Wu in disbelief, and kept throwing warning glances at her. Chieftain Sinal had a lot of treasure. If Feng Wu could visit their vault, she would find something so much better than this seal. Nightsnow probably felt ashamed of himself as he smiled wryly. This seal indeed doesn't seem very sincere. Princess Feng Wu, I think you should choose something yourself. With that, he was about to put the seal away. However, Feng Wu was much quicker. She reached out and grabbed the seal. And her grip was very tight. Both Nightsnow and Feng Sun gave her strange looks. That was unnaturally fast. Feng Wu had heard Little Phoenix. The warm jade was only a shell, and the real treasure was inside. Of course she wouldn't let it slip away. I mean it. This seal is fine. I don't want to change it. Feng Wu then put the seal into her sleeve. Feng Sun glanced at her in resignation. What a pity. She didn't know what she was missing out on. Chapter 1586 Prince Knights Now 3. Chapter 1586 Prince Knights Now 3. Knights Now, on the other hand, quite liked Feng Wu, because she wasn't as domineering as Feng Sun. What a nice smell! Knights Now found the air filled with the aroma of roast meat. Turning around, he saw the skewered meat on the grill. How can it smell so nice? He found it hard to believe. The people of the grassland ate roast meat on a daily basis. However, even the best cook in court couldn't make anything that smelled so nice. Feng Sun raised his eyebrow. An idea suddenly struck him. It smells nice, doesn't it? Come. Sit here and let's chat. Feng Sun had been trying to find a way to become familiar with Knights Now. After all, they were on the senile grassland, and Knights Now might give them some help when they needed it. Knights Now sat down on the ground in his white robe. As soon as he sat down, Feng Sun handed him a skewer of roast meat. Here, try this. See if it's as good as the food here on your grassland. Feng Wu watched their interactions. Seeing the handsome teenager's white robe and his good manners, she had assumed that he would be quite the prude, but he sat down on the ground at Feng Sun's invitation and ate the meat which Feng Sun handed to him. He was actually a forthright guy. Knights Now thus left a much better impression on Feng Wu. What? Knights Now took a bite and his eyes lit up. That's so delicious! The gentle prince almost jumped to his feet. This taste. Knights Now would swear that this was the most delicious roast meat he had ever tasted in his life. He could also swear that even the best cook on the grassland couldn't make something like this. Who made this roast meat? It's so. Knights Now took a deep breath. He looked at Chowga. Feng Sun pointed at Feng Wu with a smile. Our Princess Feng Wu here, of course. What do you think? Isn't it very delicious? Knights Now exclaimed in surprise. His eyes were full of admiration when he looked at Feng Wu. Princess Feng Wu herself? You have all my respect. I can say with confidence that this meat is of top quality even by the standards of the grassland. It's very unique as well. You're amazing. But before he could finish, suddenly, his eyes widened, and there was a very strange look on his face. He wanted to leave, but the feeling came so fast that he was worried he would lose the opportunity to make a breakthrough if he was distracted. At that thought, Knights Now sat down with his legs crossed and immediately started cultivating. Huh! His two guards were astonished. Your Royal Highness! They thought that Knights Now had been poisoned, so they drew out their machetes and pointed them at Feng Wu and Feng Sun. What did you do to His Royal Highness? The other guard raised a shrill alarm. He moved so fast that Feng Sun didn't have time to stop him. Whoosh! Immediately, there was an uproar in the campsite. What's going on? What happened? Enemies? Are we under attack? Before long, almost everyone came out. People from both sides were rushing out of their tent. Immediately, they all ran toward where the prince was, and the two troops faced off against each other. What happened? Mu Manor was in charge of daily affairs, so Lord Mu was the first to arrive during the crisis. Chapter 1587 Prince Knights Now 4. Chapter 1587 Prince Knights Now 4. However, he calmed down when he saw Jun Linyuan. With the crown prince here, nothing serious could possibly happen. Among the senile people, the oldest prince was the first to draw out his sword and charge forward. He was followed by a team of heavily armored guards. What happened? The older prince's tone was authoritative, and the cold, murderous look in his eyes made one shiver. Night Snow's guards cried out in unison, "The young prince was poisoned! The young prince was poisoned!" The older prince ran up to them with his sword, and he frowned when he saw Night Snow's pale face. Immediately an idea came to him. The idea took root in his mind like a demon. It then grew at an unbelievable speed. He wondered if he should take advantage of the chaos and, while he was still fidgeting and hesitating, Feng Sun had already started shouting. "Calm down! Calm down! There's no enemy! No enemy! Everyone put down your weapons and go back to your posts!" Feng Sun's words carried some weight. As soon as he said them, the chaos subsided and order was reinstated. However, having order again was a good thing for a lot of people, but not for the older prince, because he couldn't take advantage of the chaos anymore. The opportunity had slipped from his grasp. "How dare you poison the young prince? You deserve to die. My Sino brothers, let's—" Feng Wu's stomach lurched when she heard what the older prince said. Damn it! He was trying to make a scene. If the Sino troop acted recklessly and killed someone of the Junwu Empire in the chaos, the two sides would be out of control. When all hell broke loose, the older prince could take advantage of the situation to kill the young prince and blame it on someone else. And he could definitely shove the blame on her. Once she figured that out, Feng Wu was completely disappointed in the older prince. He was just another politician blinded by his desire for power. However, the older prince was a very capable man. Feng Wu wasn't as powerful as he was, so even if she shouted just as loudly, she couldn't drown out his voice. Jun Linyuan. Jun Linyuan was the first person that came to mind. Before she knew it, she grabbed his hand and gave him a pleading look. Jun Linyuan was too smart to miss it. One look from Feng Wu and he knew what she wanted. Thus, before the older prince could speak again, Jun Linyuan smacked him on the head. "Ah!" The older prince's head swam and he faltered. He was stopped abruptly in the middle of his sentence. All conflict ceased at that moment. By the time he realized it, everything had quieted down. The older prince saw that he had been ambushed. "Who did it?" He turned to Jun Linyuan. When their eyes met, the older prince flinched. Such a terrifying teenager. And that terrifying teenager was watching him with brooding eyes. The older prince avoided the gaze involuntarily. He then looked from Jun Linyuan to Night Snow. What a pity! After losing this precious chance, he would have to wait until the spiritual essence recovered. The older prince was quick to react. The next second, he glared at Feng Sun and asked, "Who poisoned my brother?" Chapter 1588, Untitled. Chapter 1588, Untitled. The guard next to Night Snow pointed at Feng Wu. "She did it. She poisoned the young prince." Whoosh. Immediately, all eyes were on Feng Wu. Emperor Wu and Chieftain Sino were here, and so were all their subjects. They looked at Feng Wu as well. Feng Wu shrugged. "I didn't poison him." Seeing the young prince's pale face and his cold sweat, Chieftain Sino was infuriated. He yelled, "What happened? What's wrong with my son?" The older prince stared at Feng Wu and said coldly, "They poisoned my brother." Feng Sun flared up. "No, we didn't. We haven't poisoned anyone. Where's your proof? Can't you see his appearance? There's your proof." Sapphiro said angrily. She had finally found a chance to take Feng Wu down, and she wasn't going to let it pass. Immediately, she jumped at it. "How dare you poison my brother? Guys, take her down." Sapphiro was ready to charge at her. The people of the Sino grassland all drew out their weapons, looking indignant. The men of the Junwu Empire raised their guard. The mood grew tense. However, Feng Wu's face was very calm. She didn't seem disturbed at all. Feng Sun was dumbfounded. He kept saying loudly, "We didn't poison the young prince. He just ate a skewer of roast meat." However, no one would listen to him. Luckily, Master Chu arrived at that moment. He rushed over to check the young prince's pulse, and was surprised by what he found. Emperor Wu gave Master Chu a stern look. "What's wrong? Is he really poisoned?" "The young prince indeed has toxins in his body," Master Chu said honestly. Sapphiro flared up. "I was right. You poisoned my brother. Kill Feng Wu for me. She has to pay for it with her own life." Feng Wu and Feng Sun exchanged looks of disbelief. Why had the prince been poisoned? Seeing that the men of Sinal were getting restless again, Emperor Wu stared at Feng Wu, his face dark. What on earth happened? If Feng Wu caused a conflict between the two forces, she would have a lot to answer for. Even with all the pressure on her shoulders, Feng Wu still looked unperturbed. She said, "The second prince ate some roast meat before he became like this. But we ate the meat ourselves as well, and we're all fine." Master Chu stepped out and picked up a skewer of meat to examine it. "It's not poisoned," he gave his conclusion. Sapphiro wouldn't believe him. "Not poisoned? Why should we believe you?" Master Chu smiled and stuffed the meat into his mouth. It was made by Miss Feng Wu and filled with spiritual essence. If he was lucky enough, he would make a breakthrough. Only a fool wouldn't eat it. The others realized what was going on when he started eating. "Master Chu, let me help you." Master Bai, the other physician, stepped out of the crowd and quickly walked toward the roast meat. Thanks to Feng Wu's roast meat the last time, he had broken through his stubborn bottleneck. Feng Wu's dish was a treasure that could help with one's cultivation. One of the men of the Junwu Empire murmured, "Isn't the prince making a breakthrough?" Chapter 1589, Untitled. Chapter 1589, Untitled. That reminded everyone. Wait. Judging by the prince's posture, it was very likely that he was making a breakthrough. A breakthrough? The Grasslanders almost burst out laughing, especially Sapphiro. Her eyes widened in disbelief. "A breakthrough? Have you lost your mind? Where did you get that crazy idea from?" Feng Sun said grumpily, "You're so ignorant. Xiao Wu's food has helped a lot of people make breakthroughs." Many men of the Junwu Empire nodded. Sapphiro laughed so hard that she was almost in tears. Her food can help one's cultivation? That's just preposterous. The people of the Junwu Empire are so naive. Feng Sun snapped. "What if it's true?" Sapphiro said, "If my brother really is making a breakthrough, I'll cut my head off and give it to you to sit on." Feng Sun said, "You mean it?" Sapphiro said, "I do. Everyone here is our witness. If my brother isn't making a breakthrough, I'll cut your head off and kick it around like a ball." Feng Sun looked to Feng Wu for her opinion. Feng Wu nodded slightly. Feng Sun said, "All right. It's a deal." Since a similar thing had happened several times in the Junwu Empire, all the men had gotten used to it and remained very calm. Not only the men, but Emperor Wu also looked perfectly calm. "Your Majesty, aren't you going to give us an explanation?" Chieftain Sinal took the chance to try and force Emperor Wu's hand. "Are you going to ignore what happened to my son?" Crossing his hands behind his back, Emperor Wu said calmly, "Of course I won't. But you don't need to worry. Have a look and you'll see." Chieftain Sinal said, "Your Majesty." Emperor Wu waved him off and looked at the grill. There was still a lot of roast meat on it, but Master Chu and Master Bai were eating quickly, and the amount of meat was going down as they watched. Emperor Wu glanced at the crowd behind him. They were all swallowing. They had to. They could endure it if it was just delicious, but the meat also contained spiritual essence that could improve their ability. No one would be able to resist it. Even Emperor Wu himself couldn't resist anymore. The chief steward knew Emperor Wu well. One look and he knew what his master wanted. He quickly went to the grill and filled a clean porcelain plate with some roast meat before coming back to Emperor Wu. "Your Majesty, do you want to test if there's poison in it?" Had the steward lost his mind? Next to them, Chieftain Senil stared at the chief steward in disbelief. How had this man risen to his position? While Chieftain Senil was still staring at the chief steward in disbelief, and thought that Emperor Wu would kick him away, the most unbelievable thing happened. Emperor Wu picked up some skewered meat and stuffed it into his mouth. What? Chieftain Senil was so astonished that his mouth fell open. He wasn't the only one. Next to him, Sapphiro, the older prince, and everyone else stared at him in astonishment. Your Majesty, the meat may be poisoned. Chapter 1590 Untitled. Chapter 1590 Untitled. Chieftain Senil cried out and tried to stop Emperor Wu's near-suicidal attempt. However, Emperor Wu was surprisingly calm. The roast meat is very nice. It's full of color, fragrance, and taste. Chieftain, would you like to try some? Emperor Wu handed him a skewer of meat. Although that was a question, Emperor Wu was already stuffing the meat into Chieftain Senil's hands. He wasn't asking for his opinion. It was a plain statement. Chieftain Senil's heart sank. Emperor Wu pressed harder when he saw him hesitate. Come. Try one. It's really good. Emperor Wu was the ruler of the empire, and Chieftain Senil was his subject, so of course he had to follow the order. Fighting back his fear, Chieftain Senil took some meat with trembling fingers and stuffed it into his mouth despite his fear of death. He wolfed it down in one bite. How is it? Not bad, right? Emperor Wu chuckled. Chieftain Senil smiled wryly. He didn't know much about the taste, because he was too nervous to taste anything. However, why do I feel a streak of spiritual essence rushing up from my belly? Chieftain Senil thought he was mistaken. Emperor Wu laughed and said, Try again. Chieftain Senil ate some more. Wait, I feel the spiritual essence again. Chieftain Senil's eyes lit up. When he reached out to get some more, Emperor Wu told the chief steward, You can put it away. The chief steward, who had been holding the plate with both hands, reacted quickly. Thus, when Chieftain Senil reached for it again, his grip closed on empty air. Your Majesty! Chieftain Senil looked at Emperor Wu in bewilderment. Be more generous and give me another one. Chieftain Senil was anxious because he could clearly feel the spiritual energy inside him moving after he ate the meat. He had been stuck at a bottleneck for so long and hadn't felt this way in a long time. He had a feeling that if he could have more meat, he might be able to make a breakthrough. Emperor Wu shook his head. No, I can't give it to you. Chieftain Senil grabbed Emperor Wu's sleeve anxiously. Why not? You have a whole plate there. There are 10 skewers of them at least. Emperor Wu shook his head. No, I can't part with them. Chieftain Senil was befuddled. He had been stuck at his current level for so long. He had now seen a chance, but it was taken away abruptly. He wouldn't feel so anxious if the opportunity had disappeared on its own. The problem was that he still had a chance, and it was right in front of his eyes. Your Majesty! Chieftain Senil was very worried, but Emperor Wu teased him deliberately. Crossing his hands behind his back, the Emperor shook his head proudly. As he shook his head, Emperor Wu thought to himself that little Feng Wu really was a genius. Even if she were a good-for-nothing who had no spiritual essence, with her cooking skills alone, she could rise to a high status and enjoy long-lasting fame. Emperor Wu had to admit that Feng Wu had made him proud several times already since their arrival on the Senil grassland. Seeing how stingy Emperor Wu was, Chieftain Senil was frustrated. He quickly looked around. There. He immediately saw that there were 4 skewers left on the grill. Master Chu and Master Bai might have said that they were checking for poison, but judging by the looks on their faces, they were clearly enjoying themselves. Stop, stop! The rotund Chieftain Senil quickly ran toward them. Chapter 1591 Struck Dumb 1. Chapter 1591 Struck Dumb 1. Master Chu and Master Bai were enjoying their meat. When they turned around, they were terrified by what they saw. Because the rotund chieftain Senil was running toward them at top speed. He waved his hands as he ran. Stop! Stop eating! Stop eating! Master Chu and Master Bai exchanged looks, and with tacit understanding, they ate even faster. Who was he kidding? It wasn't every day that one got to taste Miss Feng Wu's cooking, and those who had the chance should count themselves very lucky. Whoosh! 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 Master Chu and Master Bai filled their mouths as fast as they could, the roast meat quickly disappearing into their mouth. By the time Chieftain Senil ran to their side, all he saw was the empty grill and their full mouths. The chieftain said, "Didn't I tell you to stop eating?" He stared at their mouths, wanting to dig the meat out. Meanwhile, the crowd was divided in their reactions. Over on Emperor Wu's side, because most people knew that Feng Wu's food could help with one's cultivation, they were already used to this. However, the people of the Senil grassland had no idea, and were all astonished when they saw how their chieftain reacted. Especially Sapphiro. She stared at Chieftain Senil in disbelief. "Father, are you all right?" She saw with her own eyes Emperor Wu inviting her father to eat the meat, as well as his reaction when he ate it. He looked like he was under a spell. Chieftain Senil didn't have time to talk to Sapphiro. Right now, he was glaring at Master Chu. "You did that on purpose, didn't you?" Master Chu finally swallowed the meat in his mouth. He then patted his own chest and stared at Chieftain Senil in bewilderment. "Why, Chieftain, why are you here? How can we help you?" Such a poser. Chieftain Senil wanted to smack the two men. He had a strong feeling that with one more skewer of meat, he would make a breakthrough. Just one more. Looking around, Chieftain Senil almost felt like calling Master Chu and Master Bai dogs. Both had eaten every last shred of meat on the skewers, and not even a tiny bit remained. They were animals. There was nothing left on the grill, but Emperor Wu wouldn't give him any meat. Chieftain Senil suddenly realized something. The meat was roasted by Feng Wu. "You're Princess Feng Wu, right?" He turned to Feng Wu. Feng Sun was the first to react. As soon as Chieftain Senil looked at her, Feng Sun rushed over and shielded Feng Wu with his own body. Chieftain Senil glared at Feng Sun. "Go away, you!" Feng Sun chuckled. "Little Feng Wu is my sister. If you need anything, just talk to me." Chieftain Senil's eyes lit up. "Good, good. What a nice young chap. Come here. I want to talk to you." Chieftain Senil patted Feng Sun's shoulder in a familiar manner, as if they were best friends. Sapphiro rolled her eyes. She could barely recognize her father. He had never acted like this before. Right now, her father looked like an eager young man running after someone else's daughter. It was too obvious. "Father, have you lost your mind?" Sapphiro was confused. Chieftain Senil didn't have time to talk to Sapphiro right now. He waved her off, telling her to go away. Chapter 1592 Struck Dumb 2. Chapter 1592 Struck Dumb 2. Sapphiro was speechless. She ran up to Feng Wu and stared at her with cold eyes. "What spell did you put on my father? Why is he like this?" Feng Wu gave her a grumpy glance. "You want to know? Speak." Feng Wu chuckled. "Just look at your second brother. Soon you'll know why." Sapphiro gave her a dubious look. She wasn't the only one. A lot of the Senil grasslanders also looked at the second prince in bewilderment. They were especially frightened by Chieftain Senil's strange behavior. The chieftain was so close to a breakthrough that he was too thrilled to notice anything else, nor did he pay any attention to the situation and his own status. "Did they poison our father?" The older prince narrowed his eyes. He and Sapphiro exchanged suspicious looks. The older prince had been trying to find an opportunity to gain power, but luck had never been on his side. He wondered if he should secretly start another chaotic scene and take advantage of it to kill his brother. Otherwise, he was still pondering when, rumble! Everyone heard a rumbling noise. What was that? They were all cultivators, so they knew what that sound meant. That was why they were so astonished when they saw that the noise was coming from the second prince. The older prince was the most shocked of them all. He had always found his brother a threat, because not only did their father like the younger prince, he was also an excellent cultivator with great natural endowments. The older prince was only able to remain stronger than his younger brother because he was older and had cultivated for much longer. However, after the second prince's cultivation sped up in the last few years, the gap between their power levels had shrunk. And now, the younger prince had made yet another breakthrough. How the older prince's eyes widened in disbelief. Both he and Sapphiro were extremely astonished. Wasn't he poisoned? How can he make a breakthrough? How's that possible? Sapphiro couldn't believe what she was seeing. But it was the reality. Chieftain Senil looked thrilled when he saw this. So, he wasn't mistaken. The roast meat could really help with cultivation. Taking Feng Sun's hand, Chieftain Senil murmured to him, trying to promise him a lot of things. Ahem! Emperor Wu coughed softly into his fist. It was an obvious hint. Feng Sun sighed inwardly. Emperor Wu seized the opportunity before Feng Sun did. If Feng Sun was the one the chieftain talked to, then all the rewards would be little Feng Wu's. However, with the Junwu Empire's interference, the rewards would go to the Empire instead. What a pity! Feng Sun felt quite sorry. 5 minutes later, the second prince finally opened his eyes. How do you feel? Chieftain Senil was the most concerned, and he immediately asked his son the question. He almost frightened his son. His father had always been kind to him, but never like this. Father! Before he could go on, Chieftain Senil waved at him. Not now. Tell me, how do you feel? What progress did you make? Chapter 1593 Struck Dumb, 3. Chapter 1593 Struck Dumb, 3. Knights now gave an honest reply as he finally said, I'm 1 level higher. Because of the roast meat? Although Chieftain Senil didn't want to believe it, he felt that it was the truth. Knightsnow's glance landed on the grill, and he recalled what happened before and after his breakthrough. After that, he nodded solemnly. Yes, it was indeed because of the roast meat. With those words, he suddenly realized something. Getting to his feet, he walked up to Feng Wu and bowed politely. Thank you, my princess, for your roast meat. The warriors of the Senil grassland were astonished by his bow. Seriously? It's true? So, Prince Knights now really made a breakthrough because he ate the meat? So suddenly? So, Princess Feng Wu's meat isn't poison, but a precious medicine that can lead to progress. Immediately, everyone stared at Feng Wu in disbelief. Because a while ago, everyone thought that Feng Wu had poisoned their prince. As it turned out, not only didn't she poison him, she also helped him with his cultivation. Sapphiro was the most astonished of them all. She stood there and stared at Feng Wu in bewilderment. No, it has to be a mistake. Brother, your breakthrough might have nothing to do with her. Sapphiro grabbed his hand. Shaking off her hand, Knights now smiled wryly. Sister, is it so difficult for you to admit that Feng Wu is awesome? Sapphiro was dumbfounded. Knights now bowed at Feng Wu again. Sorry for putting you through this, Princess Feng Wu. If you need my services in the future, I'll do whatever I can, through fire or high water. He then stood up and calmly moved to one side. Meanwhile, the older prince stared at Feng Wu with hatred in his eyes. Since she had enabled Knightsnow's breakthrough, she was his enemy from now on. Meanwhile, Chieftain Senil felt like screaming. He had almost struck a deal with Feng Sun, where he would offer 3 treasure items from his vault in exchange for some of Feng Wu's meat. However, Emperor Wu intervened and the deal fell through. So now, Chieftain Senil had to negotiate with Emperor Wu. And the negotiation was for their ears only. The crowd dispersed after Chieftain Senil and Emperor Wu walked into the tent. Xiao Wu, you're amazing. Feng Sun smiled at Feng Wu. You've made the Junwu Empire proud again. Look, Chieftain Senil is so anxious to have your meat that he's sweating. Feng Wu chuckled. Feng Sun sighed, his tone regretful. Too bad that His Majesty stepped in. Otherwise, the treasure would have been yours. Feng Wu smiled at him. The smile gave Feng Sun the creep. Why are you smiling like that? There was a meaningful look in Feng Wu's clear, black eyes. She patted Feng Sun on the shoulder. My dear brother, you're still so naive. His Majesty is a veteran in this. He knows what he's doing. Feng Sun stared at Feng Wu in bewilderment. What? Feng Wu smiled wryly. Why do you think Chieftain Senil is so excited over some roast meat, to the point of ignoring his own position? Feng Sun said, he's going to make a breakthrough soon. Chapter 1594, Pure Dragon Blood. Chapter 1594, Pure Dragon Blood. Feng Wu chuckled. He's indeed going to make a breakthrough. If I'm right, all he needs is the spiritual essence from 1 or 2 skewers, which will be enough to activate his own spiritual essence and lead to his breakthrough. However, she smiled at Feng Sun. That's not enough to agitate him so much as to forget who he is. Feng Sun gave it some thought and agreed. Then, what's the reason? He asked. Feng Wu shrugged. I have no idea. Feng Sun said, Huh. Feng Wu smiled. But I trust our shrewd king. He's going to get an answer out of Chieftain Senil. Moreover, he's going to make the chieftain bleed. The chieftain would have to pay a lot more than 3 treasure items. But that reward definitely won't go to you. Feng Sun shook his head. Feng Wu smiled. The treasures are not what I want. I hope instead that His Majesty will owe me a favor. Thinking about it again, Feng Sun agreed with her. They could put a price on material objects, but not on a favor from the Emperor. You're a smart girl. Feng Sun poked her in the head. Feng Wu grinned. I can say the same to you. Just then. Brother Feng? Brother Feng? Feng Wu heard a voice that almost made her jump. Prince Junlinyun. She was reminded of how the prince had been searching for her, and she felt like screaming. She immediately said goodbye to Feng Sun and went back inside the tent. As soon as she went in, Junlinyun showed up in front of Feng Sun. What happened? He looked perplexed. Empress Dugu had been nagging on and on until he almost lost it. Now, he was finally able to get away. Feng Sun told him what happened just then. Junlinyun wouldn't believe it. If eating meat alone can help with breakthroughs, then why should we bother to cultivate at all? We can just eat meat every day, Junlinyun said casually. What he didn't know was that Chieftain Senil had asked Emperor Wu to give Feng Wu to him in exchange for 1/5 of the Senil grassland. However surprised Emperor Wu was, he refused the offer without hesitation. Who was this man kidding? If the Emperor dared to give Feng Wu away, Junlinyuan would definitely throw him off his throne. Meanwhile, Feng Wu was taking care of 2 objects. They were the gifts knights now had brought. The first one was the dragon spiritual stone. There were 2 of them. One was for the cub and the other was for little Phoenix. The dragon spiritual stones were the size of an egg, and they gave off a faint glow. She gave one to the cub, and while she was still wondering what the cub would do with it, she saw the cub pick up the stone and smash its small head on it. It sounded very painful. As expected, there was a cut on the cub's forehead, and blood ran down its face. The blood then dropped onto the dragon's spiritual stone. Instantly, there was a red flash. Whoosh! White light flashed, and in an instant, spiritual essence rushed into the wound. Struck by the light, the cub fell backward. Before Feng Wu knew it, the cub had passed out. Little guy. As soon as Feng Wu spoke, Little Phoenix stopped her. Don't touch it! Little Phoenix cried out and stopped Feng Wu. Its capability has been activated. Only fate can decide what it will become. Chapter 1595, Impossible. Chapter 1595, Impossible. Feng Wu asked curiously, what classes do spiritual pets usually have? Little Phoenix said, there are 6. S, A, B, C, D, E, and F. If one can activate Dragon Blood, they may reach SS class. If one can go beyond that and inherit the pure Dragon Bloodline, they'll become SSS class. Pure Dragon Blood? What does that mean? Feng Wu asked curiously. With pure Dragon Blood, they can turn into dragons when they transform. Of course, it's almost impossible. Just forget about it. Little Phoenix put a damper on her enthusiasm. Feng Wu gave the bird a regretful look. All right. Hey, why are you looking at me like that? Little Phoenix stared at Feng Wu. Feng Wu asked, if you become an SSS class pet, will you become a pure-blooded phoenix? Little Phoenix stared at Feng Wu. How do you know that? Feng Wu said, you really will? It's possible for you to turn into a pure-blooded phoenix then? As in the one that is reborn from fire? Little Phoenix snorted proudly. I am of the Fire Phoenix bloodline. Why do you think it'll be hard for me to activate it? Feng Wu stared at the bird. Really? Can you really do it? Little Phoenix said, of course I can. Despite its stubborn tone, Little Phoenix knew better than anyone else that it was extremely difficult to become a pure-blooded phoenix. There you go. Feng Wu gave the other dragon's spiritual stone to the bird. Something occurred to Little Phoenix before it took the stone. Bring me the 10 direction seal. I'll take a look for you. Since the bird was about to enter the transformation stage and didn't know when it would wake up, nor could it predict the outcome, it decided to examine the seal for Feng Wu first. Will the transformation be dangerous for you? Feng Wu looked at Little Phoenix. Do you think a petty thing like that can be dangerous to me? Little Phoenix said proudly. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. The spiritual essence is about to recover, and this area is going to become a living hell. Stop messing about. Feng Wu was startled. A living hell? How? No one has told me anything. Little Phoenix said grumpily, that's because they don't know either. Feng Wu said, what? Didn't they say that the spiritual essence recovers every year? It shouldn't be dangerous, right? Little Phoenix snorted. This year is special. It's going to be the most dangerous period in 100 years. You know what? I'm going to hold off on my transformation. You may be dead before you know it. Feng Wu asked, is it that serious? Little Phoenix had never been so serious. Staring at Feng Wu, it said, it's 100 times more serious than you can imagine. Just think about that. Feng Wu said, Meanwhile, Little Phoenix had already picked up the 10 direction seal. It fiddled with it and narrowed its eyes. It studied and examined the seal carefully. I know there's a problem, but I just can't figure out what. Feng Wu told Little Phoenix, when I held it just then, I already examined it with a formation, but it turns out that this seal contains runes, not formations. As for the runes, Feng Wu shook her head. I've never seen something so special before, so I can't recognize any of them. I've seen them before, Little Phoenix declared unexpectedly. You've seen them? When? Feng Wu was bewildered. You've been in the ring all this time. How could you have seen something that I haven't? Think carefully. Have you really seen them before? Little Phoenix said solemnly, I really have. As for where? It rubbed his head because it just couldn't remember. In my previous life, maybe? Little Phoenix spoke to itself. Feng Wu chuckled. Cut it out. Your previous life? Why not say that you've lost your memory? But I really have seen it before, Little Phoenix said proudly. All right, you have. Then tell me, what do these 7 special runes mean? And how are you going to take off this warm jade shell? Feng Wu had tried. It was impossible to remove that shell by sheer force. However, to Feng Wu's surprise, the next second, crack, there was a crisp sound. Feng Wu watched as Little Phoenix cracked the seal with its claws. How can that be? Little Phoenix glanced at Feng Wu. See. Feng Wu was very surprised. You really know these 7 runes? You mean it? Little Phoenix scratched its head. I do, but it seems like something from another life. I can't remember. Well, the result is what's important, not the process. Feng Wu said, I can't argue with that. Little Phoenix had already removed the outer layer of the seal to reveal a small, exquisite blood-red seal inside. What's this? Tilting her head, Feng Wu looked at it curiously. Meanwhile, Little Phoenix gazed at Feng Wu with a strange look in its eyes. Feng Wu was perplexed. What's the matter? Do you know what this is? Little Phoenix took a deep breath and shook the seal that was in its claws. Feng Wu was bewildered. No, I don't. It looks like a top-grade bloodstone seal. I'm sure it's worth a lot. Little Phoenix smacked Feng Wu on the head. Worth a lot? Is bloodstone all you can think about? You fool. Rubbing her forehead, Feng Wu looked at Little Phoenix. Why are you so excited and rude all of a sudden? Little Phoenix stared at Feng Wu. Do you know what this is? Feng Wu said, I'm asking you, aren't I? Little Phoenix said, This is the seal of the Ghost King. The Ghost King seal. Do you know what that is? Seeing the crooked characters on it, Feng Wu shook her head. What is that language? I don't understand it. It's not a language of the living. It belongs to the netherworld. Little Phoenix snapped. Feng Wu asked, So, the netherworld does exist. More importantly, why do you know their language? She was intrigued. Not only did Little Phoenix understand the 7 special runes, it also understood the language of the netherworld. How? How do I know? It's just in my brain, and I automatically know it. Little Phoenix rubbed its head. That's not important. What's important is that it's the Ghost King seal. What's the Ghost King seal? The Ghost King seal represented the Ghost King themselves. Soon, this place will turn into a living hell, and there will be more ghosts than you can imagine. Little Phoenix sounded excited. These ghosts don't have physical forms, and it'll be almost impossible to kill them. But now, things will be different for us. It shook the seal and said excitedly, Now we have the Ghost King seal. It'll be like the Ghost King is with us. When we take out the seal, it'll freeze the ghost. If you're more capable, you can even control them and use them yourself. How awesome is that? Feng Wu's eyes widened. Is this bloodstone seal so awesome? Little Phoenix snapped. I told you already. It's not a bloodstone seal. It's the Ghost King seal. Feng Wu said, That's to say, if I have this seal on me when the spiritual essence recovers, the ghosts won't bother us, right? Little Phoenix said, Yes. Feng Wu was thrilled. That was to say, she would have a great advantage when the spiritual essence recovered. When that happened, it would be so much easier for her. If Sapphiro knows that the Ghost King seal was concealed in the 10 Direction seal, how furious would she be? Feng Wu chuckled. Little Phoenix said, I don't know how angry she'll be, but she'll definitely try to take it away from you. Chapter 1596 Life and Death 1. Chapter 1596 Life and Death 1. After some thought, Feng Wu had to admit that Little Phoenix was right. She couldn't let others know about the Ghost King seal yet, since it would be considered a great advantage. It would definitely cause a scene. After all, too many people would want it. It's said that the spiritual essence recovers on December 12th each year. If that's the case, we still have 3 more days to wait. I really hope that it'll come sooner. That way I can try this Ghost King seal. Little Phoenix gave Feng Wu a grumpy look. It seems that you're going to get your wish. Feng Wu asked, What do you mean? Little Phoenix said quietly, That day should come earlier this year. How do you know that? Can you sense it? Is it starting already? Feng Wu's eyes widened. Little Phoenix gave her a grumpy look. All I can say is that it can start at any moment. When that happens, the entire area of the spirit source will be fraught with danger, but there will be an opportunity as well. You'll benefit a lot from it. Feng Wu nodded. Little Phoenix said, But after what you did earlier, the people of the Senile Grassland are already wary of you. The older prince and princess at least already deem you their greatest enemy. Why did you have to do that? Feng Wu said, Well, what happened was beyond my control. She didn't expect knights now to make a breakthrough because of some roast meat, nor could she have expected that Chieftain Senile would have such a big reaction to the spiritual essence in it. Little Phoenix waved her off. If an explanation could fix everything, why would you need to cultivate? Just remember, when the spiritual essence starts recovering, you should follow Jun Linyuan and never leave his side. Got it? Feng Wu frowned. If that was the case, how would she find her own opportunity? Little Phoenix wanted to smack Feng Wu on the head. Don't you see? Jun Linyuan is the one with the real luck. Follow him, and you won't get any fewer opportunities. Feng Wu smacked her own head. That was right. How could she forget such an important thing? When did you say that the spiritual essence would recover? Feng Wu turned around and asked Little Phoenix. Any moment, arg! Little Phoenix suddenly cried out. Feng Wu stared at it. Little Phoenix stared back at Feng Wu. Don't you hear the cracking sound of magma underground? Feng Wu shook her head in confusion. Little Phoenix snorted. Why are your senses so blunt now? Feng Wu was even more confused. Now? Were they sharper 5 years ago? She remembered that she wasn't as capable 5 years ago, and she couldn't sense much then either. Little Phoenix said, I don't mean 5 years ago. Feng Wu was even more confused. When do you mean, then? When? Little Phoenix tilted its head and tried to think, but it still couldn't remember why it would have such an impression. It smacked its own heart. It's very strange. After waking up this time, I feel that there are more things in my head. Feng Wu nodded. That's right. You've become very strange now. Little Phoenix wouldn't acknowledge that. You're the one who's strange. The following morning, while Feng Wu was still sleeping, Little Phoenix was already banging around in the ring space. Hey, wake up! Little Feng Wu! Wake up! Little Phoenix made a ruckus. Chapter 1597 Life and Death 2. Chapter 1597 Life and Death 2. Hey, Little Feng Wu, are you a pig? The sun is so high already. Get up. The spiritual essence has almost spread to here. Feng Wu had wanted to lie in, but when she heard the last bit of Little Phoenix's words, she jerked up in bed. What? The spiritual essence is almost here. Feng Wu jumped to her feet and ran toward the door. Little fool! Little Phoenix said grumpily. Lifting the curtain, Feng Wu saw that everyone outside was attending to their own tasks and affairs without showing any anxiety. She examined the air around her but didn't feel any dense spiritual essence, let alone the so-called chaotic energy. The spiritual essence hasn't spread here. Throwing a dirty look at Little Phoenix, Feng Wu wanted to climb back into bed. She was exhausted from cultivating the night before and still hadn't recovered yet. She needed some quality sleep time to recharge. However, before Feng Wu could get back into bed, Little Phoenix flew out of the ring space and smacked her on the head. Feng Wu grimaced in pain. Holding her head, Feng Wu stared at Little Phoenix and gritted her teeth. What are you doing? Somehow, she felt that little Phoenix became much stricter after it woke up this time. To be more precise, it seemed to become an elderly figure who liked to scold her. It was such a strange feeling. At that thought, Feng Wu stared at little Phoenix and narrowed her eyes. What secret was the bird hiding? And why did it seem to concern her? Feng Wu was still feeling confused, when little Phoenix urged her loudly, "What are you waiting for? Do you think you still have a lot of time? Go." What? Where? Feng Wu was confused when she heard those words. "Go find Jun Linyuan," little Phoenix yelled anxiously. After it woke up this time, it had gained the instinct to tell good fortune from ill omens, and it could sense now that Feng Wu was going to run into some danger. "Why should I go to Jun Linyuan? I won't." Grabbing her duvet, Feng Wu wanted to lie down again. Little Phoenix picked up the duvet with its beak and threw it away. "Hey!" Feng Wu glared at little Phoenix. It was a good thing she didn't sleep in the nude. Staring at Feng Wu, little Phoenix spoke in a tone that suggested that Feng Wu wasn't able to live up to its expectations. "Little Feng Wu, do you think I was making fun of you when I told you to go to Jun Linyuan? Do you not realize that there's a life-threatening tribulation ahead of you?" "What?" Feng Wu was really surprised this time. "A life-threatening tribulation? What's that?" Little Phoenix glared at her. "I can't reveal divine secrets, and I can't foresee the details. But I'm sure of this tribulation, so hurry up and go to Jun Linyuan. Stay with him for the next few days. Don't go anywhere else. Go now." Feng Wu still dallied. Little Phoenix wanted to kick her. Which is more important, your pride or your life? The latter, of course. But little Phoenix stared at Feng Wu. Feng Wu said, "Are you sure about this?" Little Phoenix looked solemnly at Feng Wu. "Yes. Not only is it a life-and-death tribulation, but what?" Feng Wu gritted her teeth and asked nervously. "It's a life-threatening tribulation circle. That's the most life-threatening of all. If the chance of escaping a life-and-death tribulation is slim, this one is much worse. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.